Okay, so let's get started with the session. So the release of the version of the bot builder that we are going to discuss in the training is the 9.0 release, which is a recent version that we have. And the topics that we are going to discuss today are introduction to Core AI's virtual assistant platform. What it is, what are the different features that we are going to discuss in this training session. Then we will switch over to the virtual assistant platform, where we will be discussing about how to design conversations, how to create different types of or build different types of tasks within the bot or virtual assistant, like dialogue tasks, how to add FAQs, how to work with digital forms, how to use data tables which are available within our platform. And then we will look into how to add a channel, if time permits today, how to add a channel and deploy the bot to the end user. As we go about with the configurations, we will discuss how to debug the errors, how to look into the debug window, understand the different types of errors so that you are able to troubleshoot in case there are some errors in the configuration. So this is today's training sessions. Tomorrow we are going to talk about more on the training part of the bot, how we train the bot to understand different types of utterances coming from the users, how we can test the bot before we deploy it to the end users, how we can monitor the performance of the bot after it has been deployed to the end users, and followed by bot management, where we will see how we can import, export bot configurations or share the bot with code developers and so on. So basically, after the training is over, a developer or any participant should have an end-to-end understanding on how to configure a bot and make it available to the end users. So since this is a developer's training, you should be having access to the bot builder. The link is given over here, so you can access this link once I share the slide deck with you all. And once you visit this particular site, you open the site, it will ask you to log in with your email ID. If this is a new email ID, of course, you won't be having an account, so it will be a new email ID. So you need to sign up to create an account on the bot builder. So provide your details like your first name, last name, your password, and so on, and click on the sign up button. That will create an account for you on the bot builder, and you can use the bot builder in order to create your virtual assistants. But this is your own account, so whatever bots you are building over here, only you can see the configuration. If you want to share your bot with other co-developers for a collaborative effort, you need to invite them into your account. We will see how we can do this later on in the training session. But after you complete your training and all, and you're certified, if you want to work or contribute to your enterprise's bot building efforts, then you have to be a part of your enterprise's account. So they might have their own on-prem deployment of the bot builder. So you need to request the admin of the platform to give you access to the bot builder. Or if they have an account on our clouds deployment where multiple developers from the organization are a part of the account, in that case as well, you have to request the admin of the platform, who will be one of the employees from your end, to give you access to the bot builder. But that is later, once you get through the training. During the training process, you can create your own account, and that you can do it by visiting this particular site, that is botscore.ai bot builder, and creating your account over here. But either way, you should have an account, because this entire training is focused on building virtual assistants. At the end of the training also, you need to build the virtual assistant to complete the course. So that is why make sure that you have an account and you have access to the bot builder. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, so let's get started with discussing the features of our platform. But before we do that, let us understand why do we need virtual assistants or chatbots. So looking into the history of communication, you will see that if you look into human interactions are mainly guided by emotions, context, and awareness of previous conversation. So, whenever we are interacting amongst ourselves, our conversations are very much driven by our emotions. So, we can understand the emotion of the person to whom we are talking by the tone of his conversation, with the way he's talking to us, or the phrases that he is using in his conversation. So, we can understand the emotion, and our conversation is guided by that emotion. So if a person is very happy, the conversation will have a particular flow. But whereas if a person is angry or depressed about something, so the conversation will have a different flow. The way we talk will have a different flow in it. Okay, so emotions are used to guide human conversation. We also have very context driven conversation. That is, our conversations are always with connection to a particular purpose. So we have very subjective conversation other than the general greetings and all. Conversations are usually for actually achieving a particular purpose. Okay, so today, let's say as a customer of a bank, if I visit a bank to find out some details about the different types of accounts they are providing, after the initial greetings, I'm going to go in for a conversation through which I can get all the information that is required by me. And we have the ability to use the information that we gather in a particular conversation in some other task that we are performing. So if I gather all the information related to the different types of accounts that are available, later on I can use this information in order to open a particular type of account with the bank. So these are certain things, features that guide human conversation. And the main feature here is that we have our conversations in the free flowing language, okay, in the natural language. Like right now, I'm talking in the English language, so I'm guided by the rules of the language. Okay, so human conversations usually take place in the natural language and are guided by the rules of that language. But when we look into the interaction that takes place between humans and computer systems, these kind of interactions are more guided by syntax driven commands, okay, or by a GUI, where in each of these cases, the user has to be trained to understand how to use that particular application. Because if you're going in for a syntax driven command, you have to know what is the syntax, and only if your command is syntactically correct, then only the computer application can process it and return the response. In the same way, if you are in a GUI, then you have to know which menu, what option to select, how to provide the input, and then only the application can process it and return the response. So both of these ways of interaction is very unnatural. It is not same as the way we talk amongst ourselves. So to bridge this gap between human communications and the way we communicate with computer applications, we have the virtual assistants or chatbots. And the main feature of the virtual assistants is that is, it can understand and respond to inputs or interactions in the natural language. So when you have a chatbot or a virtual assistant, you can talk to it in the natural language, just the way you communicate with your co-fellows. In the same way, you can talk to a virtual assistant, and the virtual assistant will have the capability of understanding the utterance or the input coming from the user, process it, and return the response to the user. So this kind of an interface where the end user can talk to the application or the computer system using a natural language is known as a conversational user interface. Okay, any questions still here? Okay. So what is the science or the brain behind a computer, a virtual assistant or a chatbot, which allows it to understand the interaction taking place between the end user and the virtual assistant in the natural language. Now, when I say natural language, it means the free-flowing language that we use in our regular communication. Okay, so it is the NLP engine built within the virtual assistant or the natural language processing engine. Now, this is the brain behind the virtual assistant that helps it to read, decipher, understand, and make sense of the human language in a manner that is valuable. Now, what does this particular sentence mean? Let's say today I have a virtual assistant or a chatbot which will help the end user to perform banking related tasks. Why I'm talking about banking? Because this is something we use in our regular lives. Okay, all of us interact with bank, maybe to find out our account balance, or maybe to deposit money, or maybe to transfer money from our accounts. But this is something that we do in our regular lives. Okay, so let's say today you have a virtual assistant to perform these tasks for you. And one of the tasks there is to allow the end user to check the balance in his account. Now, what are the different ways in which you can ask for that task? Somebody can just say, I need to check my account balance. Somebody else can say, how much money do I have in my account? Another person can say, I need to go on a trip. Do I have enough funds in my account to, survive during the trip? Okay, something like that. Or I have some purchases to make. How much money do I have? Or how much money can I spend? So these are different ways, natural ways in which we want to, express our intent to check the balance in our account. Okay, intent means the task that we want to perform. So the NLP engine will be within the chatbot. So let's say we have a chatbot which has this task configured, and these are the multiple ways in which the end users can ask for the task. Okay, so when the user is expressing, his intent to perform a task, that is known as an utterance. Okay, the statement coming from the user is known as an utterance. Now, once an utterance is received by the virtual assistant, what will it do? Okay, it is the NLP engine built within that chatbot, which will try to identify what is the task the user wants to perform, because there are different types of tasks. Okay, these are a few utterances or few statements for the check balance task. There might be another task which allows the user to transfer money from his account, and the user can say, I need to transfer some money, or I need to make some payment, something like that. So whenever an utterance comes from the user, the first thing that the NLP engine will try to do is to identify the intent for the user. Okay, the task the user wants to perform. And this is known as intent recognition or intent identification. Okay, once the intent has been identified, the task has been identified from the utterance of the user. To complete that task, there will be some information that is required. Like if the user says that I need to check my account balance, of course, to complete that task, the user needs to provide the account number. So here, once the intent or the task has been identified, the next thing that the NLP engine will do is to gather all those information that is required to complete that task. And these information are known as entities, and entity extraction is the next thing that the NLP engine will do. So two primary responsibilities of the NLP engine that helps the chatbot to simulate a human being as a conversational partner is that When an utterance comes from the user, the first thing the NLP engine will do is to identify the task the user wants to perform, and that is known as intent recognition. And once the intent has been identified, the next thing that the NLP engine will do is it will try to gather the information to complete that task, and that is known as entity extraction. For both of these things, we as developers of chatbot have to train the NLP engine. Remember, the NLP engine is built within the chatbot, okay? But it is like a baby. It has the intelligence, but the intelligence needs to be trained, okay? So you need to train the NLP engine to understand that if this is the utterance of the user, then this is the task that the user wants to perform. So this guidance or this training has to be provided to the NLP engine by the developers of the chatbot. Okay, so two aspects of a virtual assistant or a chatbot. One is configurations of the task, and the second is training the NLP engine to identify or qualify tasks when utterance comes from the user. Both of these aspects we will be discussing in details in this training session. Any questions on this? So looking into Core AI's virtual assistant platform, which is the main topic of discussion in this training, we have an end-to-end solution to design, build, test, and deploy AI-powered chatbot. So one single platform from where you can design your conversations, build the tasks within the bot, test the performance of the bot, train the NLP engine, and deploy the chatbot to the end users. So before we switch over to the platform itself, let's quickly look into the key capabilities and the life cycle of a chatbot. So we have an end-to-end conversational AI platform, our NLP engine that is built within our platform, and any chatbot built on our platform is auto NLP enabled. So the NLP is always there. As a developer, all you need to do is to train the NLP engine. But when we talk about Core AI's NLP engine, we have a multi-pronged approach, which means that our NLP is a collection of three separate engines. That is the machine learning engine, the fundamental meaning engine, and the ontology-driven knowledge graph engine. We also have a fourth engine called the ranking and the resolver, which helps to resolve ambiguities and declare the winning intent. Now, how we train each of these engines, how the ranking and the resolver engine works, we'll be discussing this in details in tomorrow's training session. We also allow context management. Context is an object that is available within our platform, within the bot that you're building. And it is within this context object that is where all the information is stored, which is required to complete a particular task. Okay, so while the chatbot is in a particular task, it will have various information that is required in order to complete that task. All this information is available within the context object. So as a developer, if you want to configure a task using the information, you can always refer to the context object and extract the required information from there. We have a visual and intuitive dialogue builder. We'll be working with this. So it is a GUI based dialogue builder, very simple to use. It's a no coding platform that we have. So if you do not have any knowledge of any coding language, it's not a showstopper. You can still build your virtual assistants. Visual NLP training models. So when you are training the NLP engine, once again, you do not need to do any coding over there. All you need to do is to provide the data with which the NLP will be trained, and internally the platform will build the model which it will use to qualify intents when an utterance comes from the user. Chatbots built on our platform can handle millions of conversations per month between the user and the bot. We support full SDLC management, that is software development lifecycle management, starting from developing the chatbot to training the NLP engine, testing the bot, deploying the bot to the end user, and monitoring the performance of the bot after it has been deployed. We also allow versioning of configurations of the bot. Chatbots can be shared amongst multiple developers for a collaborative effort. And when a bot is shared, we can assign different types of roles to the concerned developer, which defines the access permission on that bot. We will look into each of these things in the training session. Channels are the way end users can connect to the bot. So today you build a chatbot, but end users, are going to connect to that bot to perform the tasks. So how do they, get access to the chatbot? It's something you can relate to it. Like today, if you visit an e-commerce site, you visit a banking site, you will see a chatbot pops up that, "Hi, how can I help you?" Okay, so the website is the interface or the channel through which you can, as an end user, you can connect to the bot. So these are there are different types of channels. You can have some messaging applications working as a channel, like maybe the WhatsApp channel or the Facebook Messenger channel or the Skype channel. So you can enable your bot there so that end users can connect to the bot over this messaging applications and can talk to the bot to perform the task. So we have multiple channels like this available, and as per the requirement, multiple channels can be enabled for the same bot. We support enterprise-grade security and compliance, so all the conversations are encrypted. We also store the conversations in databases to generate the conversation history or the chat history, which will allow the developers to monitor the performance of the bot after it has been deployed. But in the databases also, the conversations are stored in an encrypted format. But additionally, if your bot is working with some sensitive data, like maybe, the bot has captured the social security number or maybe the contact number or email address of the end user. Now, these are certain personal information that we do not like to share with people whom we don't know. Okay, so in these situations, we can apply an additional masking of sensitive data on top of the normal encryption that will take place. We have a separate console or environment or interface for the admins of the platform, from where they can do bot management, user management, role management, security management, and so on. And our platform is available in multiple deployment modes. Like our customers can have their on-prem deployment of the platform, or they can have account in our clouds deployment where multiple developers will be a part of that account, or developers can create their own account and use that account to build the virtual assistants. So these are the key capabilities. Most of these may not be very relatable right now to y'all, but as we continue with the training session, we'll be focusing on each of these aspects that I was talking about, and it will give you more clarity. But any questions on this? So before we jump into the platform itself, what are the different life cycle stages? When you have to build a virtual assistant, the first thing is identifying the use cases or defining the scope of the bot. So what are the different types of tasks the bot will be handling? What are the different FAQs that the bot will be responding to? So defining the scope of the bot is the first thing, that is the blueprinting. Now, once the tasks has been identified, the next is to design a conversation. Designing a conversation means laying down how the messages will be exchanged between the bot and the user when the user wants to perform a particular task. Okay, so when I say that I'm going to build a banking bot which will have a task inside it, allowing the user to check the balance in his account. So when I say this, what is the first thing that how the conversation will flow, how the messages will be exchanged? What is a conversation? Basically, it is an exchange of messages between, two parties, okay, or two people, in order to achieve a particular task. Okay, so here, one is the end user and one is the chatbot. So when the user wants to check the balance in his account, what is the expected, flow of messages between the user and the bot? Okay, laying down something like that is designing the conversation. Okay, just laying down that this is the expected flow in the conversation. We'll be doing that, and once the design has been approved by all, so you present a design to everybody. So this is what I think should be the flow in the conversation. And once that flow gets approved by all, then we get into the task of building the solution and the implementation. So we start thinking of what are the different components on the virtual assistant platform, which will allow us to translate that design into a task in the bot. Okay, so that is known as solution designing. And once we have identified the components, we actually start building the task in the implementation stage. Now, once the task has been built within the bot, the next is, of course, training the NLP engine. Because remember, if you have a task built only, the chatbot by default does not have the capability to handle all the different utterances that can come from the user when the user wants to perform the task. As a chatbot developer and an NLP trainer, you have to consider all the possibilities, because we are actually building a virtual assistant to allow the user to ask for a task using the natural language, the variations in the natural language. So when we say this, we have to consider all the possible utterances that can come from the user when they want to perform a task in a particular natural language, like let's say English language or French language, whichever language you're talking about, and train the NLP engine accordingly. And while you're training the NLP engine, you testing goes hand in hand. Okay, so you train, you test, and see whether the training you have provided is able to qualify the task correctly when an utterance comes from the user. And once your testing is good enough, you get a good result coming of the testing, then we deploy the bot to the end user and monitor the performance of the bot to see how well the NLP is able to qualify tasks. And if we see there are a possibility of improvement in the training of the NLP engine, we once again do it and once again test it and deploy it back to the end user. So this is a continuous process, monitoring the performance, looking into the failures. And if you see those failures can be handled with a better training or changes in the training of the NLP engine, we do that and deploy the changes once again back to the end user. So these are the different life cycle stages of a chatbot. Any questions on this? So the main product that I have been talking about till now is the Bot Builder or the virtual assistant platform, which is a web-based tool. So instead of continuing with the slides, which are actually pointers to the different topics that we are going to talk about today, we are going to, discuss today. Let's directly go into the Bot Builder and see the working of the Bot Builder. If you all have any questions anywhere, feel free to ask me your questions. So once you log in with your email ID, okay, so whenever you create an account, you will be providing an email ID and a password. So you need to log into the bot builder with your email ID and the password. So once you log in, this is the page or the landing page of a developer. Now, what does the landing page show you? The landing page shows you the different bots that you have built, okay, as a developer, as a chatbot developer, the different bots that you have built, okay. You can see over here process apps. This is something new that we have with 9.0, which we don't discuss in this training session, but it allows you to define a process, okay. So process means, let's say today you have a task called applying for leaves, okay. It's an HR related task, but that task has a definite process that once the user or the end user asks for a leave, this request should go to the manager of that particular employee. The manager should approve that leave within a given number of days. Okay, if he does not do it, he gets reminders to do it. Once the leave has been approved, the leave details should be updated in a database, and there should be an email notification sent to the end user. So this defining the entire flow in a process is what we do in a process app. But that is not a part of this discussion. We are going to focus on how to build the virtual assistant where the tasks will be defined. And while we are working with the virtual assistant, of course, there will be requirement of using tables, okay, or using data sources, because today maybe you are capturing some information from the bot and you would like to store those information in the databases or tables so that it can be used later on. These information can be used later on. So for that purpose, we have the data tab over here, which allows you to define data tables within our platform. And these tables can be used in the virtual assistants that you are building. We will look into how to create data tables and use those tables in our virtual assistant. The next is you can invite members to your account. This is required when you want to share the bot with which you are working with your co-developers. So the first thing, since this account is your personal account, you need to invite that developer to your account. So provide the email address of the developer over here, click on invite. This will trigger an email to the concerned developer with the link to access your account. Now, once the user has access or the developer has access to your account, now you can share your bots with the concerned developer. Okay, so that is inviting members to your account. The next is the help topics, the help depending on the page that you are in. So these topics are relevant to the current page of the bot builder that you are in, and you will see the topics changes as you go to the different configurations within the bot that you are working with. Clicking on any one of these topics will give you the details on the concerned topic. The next is the profile button, from where you can see the different accounts to which you have access. If you have the admin rights, or the privileges, the admin privileges, you get the link to go to the admin account over here. Profile will show you the details of your profile, that is your first name, last name, email address, your role, and so on. App language is the language of the platform itself. Okay, so here we are not talking about the language in which the end user will talk to the bot. Okay, so that is the language of the chatbot. But here what we are talking about is the language of the platform itself, and our bot builder platform is available in 3 languages. English is one, which you are seeing right now, and the other 2 languages are Japanese and Korean language. Okay, so in the training session, we will be using the bot builder in the English language. But if any one of you want to see all these menu options and all coming up in the Japanese or the Korean language, you can change it from here. Okay, and you have the link to go to the documentation. So we have a very detailed documentation. So the training will give you an overview of all the features of our bot builder platform. But if you want to look into the configurations and details, or when you are working with any of these features, if you are getting some errors or you're not sure about that configuration, you can always refer to our documentation, which will have all the details along with step-by-step instruction on how to do each of the configurations. Okay, so this is the developer's documentation, and you can always access our documentation. This should be the first place which you should be going to in case you have some challenges. Okay, so once you are not able to follow the instructions given over here, we also have something called the developers community. So you can post your questions over here, and there are a lot of developers from Core AI site. We also have a support team who looks into the questions posted in the developers community, and they will provide the solution. You can also directly mail our support team with your questions, and they will try to resolve your issues. We will come to these things within the English language. It's the US English that we follow. Okay, for the chatbot we follow on our platform, we follow the US English. Okay, but if there are differences and all, then you have to train the NLP engine accordingly. Okay, so it all comes with the NLP engine. So if anywhere, if you find any differences or things like that, you have to train the NLP engine. But the default English, this thing that we follow is the US version. Okay. Now, if we click on any of these pre-configured bots, it will open the configuration of these bots for me. So instead of looking into the configurations of an existing bot, let us start off with creating a new bot. Any questions still here? Okay. So let's start off with creating a new bot and understand all the configurations that go into a bot. So let's start from scratch. That is, we are building a bot. Now, when you start off with building a bot, there are three information or details that you need to provide. One is the name of the bot, the default language of the bot. Default language is the language in which you are doing your initial configurations. Now, we support multiple languages for the bot that you are building. So if you click over here, you will see all the languages which are supported for the bots that you built. Okay, so in the training session, we'll be right now discussing the English language in the basic training session. In the advanced training session, we will also look into how to enable multiple languages for the bot to make it multilingual. Okay, so that the utterance coming from the user can be in any one of the languages which are enabled for the bot. Okay, and our NLP has to be trained accordingly to understand these inputs coming from the user in the different languages that you enable and identify tasks correctly. Okay, so right now we are going to build the bot in the English language and the type of the bot. Okay, so we support different types of bots like standard bots, universal bots, and smart bots. Standard bots are the standalone bots where all the configurations go in. So when you start off with the bot building journey, the first bot, the type of bot that you should be building is a standard bot, because it is within a standard bot that you define all your tasks, you go in for the NLP training, you can test the performance and so on. When you have multiple standard bots like this and you want to link up all those standard bots together, then you go in for something called universal bots. And when you want to build a standard bot which can be inherited by other inherited by other teams or maybe other enterprises or your customers, so that they can inherit this solution and then make changes in the solution and deploy it to the end users, then we are talking about a smart bot which allows inheritance. But all of these things comes after you have configured a standard bot. So it is the standard bot where you are going to do all the configurations of the tasks and the NLP training. So in the basic training session, we'll be discussing the configurations of a standard bot. You can select the different types of bots from here, but we are going to work with the standard bot and the name of the bot. Now remember, the name of the bot is displayed in the conversation window. So instead of naming a bot like this, like bot 1, bot 2, which does not say anything about the personality of the bot, because it is from the name of the bot, a user should understand what domain the bot belongs to, or what are the possible types of tasks that the bot can perform. So it is always good to name your bot with a proper name. Okay, so let's say I name it as let's say training bank bot, something like this. Okay, I'm going to discuss banking related task configurations, so I name it like this. You should always name your bot in a way so that the name of the bot tells the user of the bot what are the different types of tasks so the bot can perform for the user. Okay, now once you have provided all these details, click on the create button, which will create a new bot for you and bring you to the summary page of the configuration of the bot. Now, this summary page gives you a bird's eye view into the entire configuration of this bot. So there are different types of tasks we can configure within the bot. First is the conversation task. What is the conversation task? It is, the tasks which will involve multiple messages exchanged between the bot and the user. It will also have different types of configurations, like maybe decision making, okay, or maybe flows over there, depending on decision, alternate flows within that particular conversation. It can have configurations or interactions with external systems through API calls. For complex conversations, you can also have some coding which can be implemented through JavaScripts. So all of these goes into a conversation task, which we refer to as a dialogue task. So the number of dialogue tasks that you configure within the bot will be displayed in the task section. Knowledge graph, on the other hand, refers to the FAQs. Okay, so simple question answer pairs. If the user asks this, the bot should respond with this. So that those are known as FAQs. And the number of FAQs that you add into your bot will be displayed in the knowledge graph section. Then you have the small talk section, which refers to the general conversation that can take place between the user and the bot. Something like hello, hi, how are you? Okay, goodbye, thank you. So these are general conversation. Now, for all bots built on our platform, we provide a default section under small talk, which is the greeting section available out of the box to handle all these greetings that can be exchanged between the bot and the user. So if the user says hello, how the bot should respond to that, okay? Or if the user says thank you, how the bot should respond to that. So all of these different types of expected greetings are already defined within the section, and how the bot should be responding to it is also provided here. You can, as a developer, you can add additional greetings. If you see there is something not handled within this default section, you can add your own greetings over there. You can also create a new group of small talk for your domain specific interactions. Like if this is a banking bot and if the user asks what is the name of the bank, or the user asks can you give me the address of the bank. Okay, so these are general conversation. These have nothing to do with a task like opening an account or transferring money, something like that. Or it is not an FAQ related to the different types of services provided by the bank. So these are just general FAQs or greetings that can be exchanged. So those things are defined within the small talk section. You can build forms within the bot and use it in the tasks. So this comes under digital skills. Natural language section will show you all the training that has been provided to the NLP engine to handle the utterances coming from the user. Channels will show you the multiple channels that are enabled for the bot. Change logs will show you all the changes that has been done to the configuration. Clicking on any one of these will take you to the detailed configuration. It just gives you a bird's eye view over here. Teams will show you the list of all developers who have access to the bot configuration along with their roles. And we have some advanced configurations also over here, like creating variables, creating authorization profile, defining the interruption behavior of the bot, defining some events within the bot. So all of these are advanced configuration within the bot. But as a developer, you can see the entire configuration from this particular summary page. Okay, any questions on this? We also have all our options available, or the features available, and you can see on the top you have 4 tabs: build, deploy, analyze, and manage. The build tab will show you all those features which are related to building or configuring a chatbot. Okay, so here you will get features or those options through which you can add tasks into the bot. You can train the NLP engine. You can go in for the interruption behavior or the intelligence of the bot. You can test the bot. You can do some additional configurations like enabling multiple languages for the bot. So all of these goes into building a particular bot. So they are provided under the build tab. Now, once you have built the content of a chatbot, the next comes deploying the bot to the end user. So all those features which will help the user developer to deploy the bot to the end user can be accessed from the deploy tab on the top. Once the bot has been deployed, we need to monitor the performance of the bot, and all of those reports which will help the developers to monitor the bot performance are available under the Analyze section. And the Manage tab will allow the owner of the bot to share the bot with co-developers. Okay, so all these topics are all the features of the bot building, are segregated depending on their functionality, and you can access it by clicking on the relevant tab over here. So if you all have any questions on these, please ask. Otherwise, we'll start off with the bot configuration. Okay, so let's think about a task. This is a banking bot that I'm talking about. So let's pick up one task that I want within the bot. That is the task I've been talking about, a task that will allow the users to check the balance in their account. This is something which all of us do very frequently. Okay, all of us, we have bank accounts and we regularly check the balance in our account. Okay, so let's say the bank with whom which is where you have your account has a chatbot through using which you can check the balance in your account. Okay, now how do you build this particular task? So when you think about the task, if you are a chatbot developer and you are entrusted with the responsibility of building this task, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? First thing is how this conversation will take place. Okay, what is the expected interaction between the user and the bot when the user wants to check his account balance? Okay, so let's say the user will say, I want to check my account balance. Okay, the bot should ask for the account number, because without that the bot cannot proceed to fetch the balance from the user's account. So once the user provides the account number, let's say the bot is going to verify it, because many a time we make a mistake in typing in the account number. So it's always good if the bot asks that, are you sure you want to use this account number? Now, if the user says yes, the bot fetches the balance in the account of the user from a database. Of course, there will be a backend, table or something where all the details of the accounts are stored. So the bot fetches the balance of the user from that particular table, let's say, and displays the balance back to the user. So this is an expected flow that I can think of when the user wants to perform the check balance task. Of course, there will be variations, the different ways in which the user can ask this particular task. There can be variations in the responses. The bot is expecting a certain thing, the user says something else totally, because we are talking about natural language. So we cannot, stop the user from saying anything. But how the bot will respond to all of those things, we are going to configure all of these things within the task that we are building. But let's keep it simple right at the starting that this is the flow that we want to implement. Okay, very similar to if you're coming from a coding background, you will know that before you actually start coding a program, we define a flow chart. We create a flow chart where we lay down how that particular program is going to flow. Okay, what are the decisions to be made, what are the alternate actions to be taken on that particular decision, what is the final output to be displayed to the user. Okay, it is very similar. The only thing is that we are talking about this entire interaction taking place in the natural language. Okay, so let us first design this conversation where we define the expected flow when the user wants to perform a task, see how we can share this design with the stakeholders for their approval, and once the design has been approved, we are going to build a task to represent this particular design. Okay, so we start off by clicking on conversation skills where we have the storyboard which will allow us to design the conversation. Okay, so every use case in the bot that you have identified, for each of those use cases or tasks, you will have a different flow in the conversation, and you can design those flows by creating a scene in the storyboard. So we click on create scene over here, and we provide a scene name, a name to the scene. Okay, you can keep it something relevant, you can keep it as scene 1, scene 2, something like that, but I would always suggest that keep it something relevant so that looking at the name you can understand the purpose. Okay, what was the scene all about? So let's say I name the scene as check account balance. Okay, you can add a description. Okay, let's say conversation to check the user's account balance. Okay, and the status of the scene. The description can be anything. Okay, so whatever it is a description. It's some very simple to understand that it is a description about what you are going to design within this particular scene. And there are different statuses which are provided. Okay, so there are pre-built statuses like in progress, completed, or approved. Or you can define your own custom status by typing in your status over here. Let's keep the status as we are going to work on designing the scene. So we keep it as in progress and we click on proceed over here. So that will bring us to the conversation designer where you can see all you need to do is provide what the user will say, what the bot will respond, and you can add additional notes to define some action of the bot or for additional information to the developers. Okay. So this particular tool or storyboard is a very good tool for the business analysts actually who have understood the requirement of the bot. They have understood how a particular task should be defined, and they want to provide the inputs to the developer. Okay, so this is a very good tool where they can provide the inputs. They can lay down that this is the actual flow that we want. Okay, and then the developers are going to refer to this conversation flow when they are building the task. Okay, any questions on why we need a storyboard? Okay, so since this task, of course, when the user is connected to the bot, the user has to say something to the bot, right? To express his intent, what he wants to do. So let's keep it very simple in the designing phase. Okay, training the bot to understand the different utterances and all these will come when we are training the NLP engine. At this stage, we are just designing. So let's put a very simple statement over here that the user can use. And the user says, let's say, I want to check my account balance. Okay, so this is an utterance coming from the user. Now when the user says something like this, okay, now whatever will be done after this, let's say will be configured within a task. Okay, and once a task has been qualified, let's say the bot should ask the user for the account number. Okay, so here, unless and until the bot asks for the account number, it cannot progress or proceed in the conversation, because to find the account balance, the account number is required. So I just click on bot says over here, and let's say the bot will ask the account number with a question like this. Um, what is your account number? You can provide anything over here, the different ways in which the bot can ask. Okay, you can change this particular bot's question. Okay, it depends on how you want to frame that question. Okay, so I want to put over here, what is your account number? Now, once the bot is asking this question, it is expected the user will respond back to this question. Okay, and the user says, like, let's say, my account number is, and since this is a design, okay, so we don't need to provide actual account numbers. Those actual account numbers and all will come when the end user is talking to the bot. Okay, so here all we need to do is to provide a dummy value to represent an account number that will come from the user. So let's say I put it as my account number is 12345. But for additional information, now since this is a design and developers are going to refer to this design when they are creating the task, it is always good to provide some additional information to the developers, that what kind of input is expected from the user when they are providing their account number. We have different rules, right? Business rules, like account number can be just a numeric value, or something like account number must be a combination of 9 digits or 10 digits, or account number of the user must start with 2 letters followed by let's say 8 digits. So these are different business rules which should be used by the bot to validate the input coming from the users. So when you are designing conversation, when you are adding defining a response of the user, if these kind of rules are to be implemented on the value that is accepted by the bot, it is always good to let the developer know about it, so that he can define the flow accordingly. Okay, and for that purpose, what we do is we click on these 3 lines over here, and we add a comment against this particular message. Okay, so you just click on the comment button over here, and you can add all your comments. Okay, as a business analyst, you can define all the rules to be implemented at this stage to validate that input coming from the user. Okay, something like, I just put it simple over here, account number is a numeric input. Okay, but you can define all your rules over here, so that the developer who is referring to this particular design in order to build a task will know at this point, when the user is providing the account number, these rules should be implemented within the task to validate the input coming from the user. We will look into ways of how we are going to implement the rules when we are building the task, but at this stage we are just defining what are the rules. We are laying down that these are the rules to be implemented. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions? Okay. Now, when the user provides the account number, like I was saying before proceeding with fetching the balance, it is always good that we verify the account number. Okay, because the user might make a mistake in typing the account number. So in the bot response, okay, there are different templates which are available on our platform. When you are defining the bot response, there are different templates which can be used to present choices to the user. Because when I say that, are you sure you want to use this account number? Uh, we need to present a choice to the user. The user can say yes, or the user can say no. And the conversation flows will be different. What will happen if the user says yes? What will happen if the user says no? Okay, so presenting these choices to the user, we can use some predefined templates. How do we use those templates? We click on this template button. You can see the different templates which are available. You can try out all of these templates, okay? But for demonstration purpose, I'll use the quick replies template over here and show you all what to do with the template. So you don't have to do any coding. Okay, so internally the coding is there to implement the template. All you need to do here is that provide the message that you want to present to the user and the choices to be presented to the user using this particular template, the quick replies template. So something like this. Now here we are going to display the account number entered by the user, but at this stage, since it is a designing stage and we had used a dummy account number like 12345, once again we are presenting it back to the user, and the choices to be presented to the user is yes, no. You can add multiple choices and accordingly define multiple flows in order to define the conversation that will take place when the user makes a selection from the list. Okay, you can click here. If you want to insert an image along with the text, you can insert the image URL over here, which will be presented along with the text that you have defined. Okay, now once you have defined the choices and the messages, click on done. Okay, and you can see the response of the bot. Okay, that is, are you sure you want to proceed with account number 12345 and the two choices. If you want to add some comments once again. Okay, so so it is always good to add these kind of comments. Okay, additional comments. It's always, sorry, I didn't. Okay, okay. So these kind of comments, if you add it, it is always good so that it is additional information to the developer who is going to use this particular design to implement a task. Sorry, I didn't save it. Um, Now coming back over here, these are the two choices, okay, yes and no. Okay, so you can define alternate flows. Okay, so you can see the user's response can be yes or the user's response can be no. Okay, so these are the two choices that we have presented to the user over here. So let's define what will happen if the user selects yes. So select the response of the user, and now, once the user says yes, he wants to proceed with this account number, uh, let's see, the bot will display the balance back to the user. So something like this, the balance in your account is, and you can apply some formattings also, like you can make sections of it bold, italics, you can have indents, outdents on the bot responses. So how do you use this formatting options? Just select the option. Okay, so whatever message needs to be displayed using that particular format. Okay, so for bold, like you have asterisks over here, your message should be within those asterisks. So whatever comes within the asterisk will be displayed in the bold, okay, in the user's response. So you can see the balance in your account is $5,000. This is once again a dummy response. And let's say the conversation ends with something like this. What else can I do for you? Okay, so see, this is an entire conversation that I have built. Okay, but I have not added any notes over here for reference. I have added a few comments. I can see the comments from here. Okay, you can see your comments that you have added over here. But this is an entire flow that I have built over here. Okay, but if you want, like before this balance is displayed to the user, of course the bot needs to make a call to an external service, okay, to a data service from where it is going to fetch that particular balance. So to add those kind of additional bot actions, okay, actions to be performed, you can add notes in between. How do you add notes? Come here between two existing message. If you hover your mouse, you get this plus sign coming up. Click on this, click on note. okay, that will allow you to add a note over here, something like, I just say service call to fetch users balance. Okay, so that is a note to the developers at this point. Similarly, after the user says, I want to check my account balance. Okay, now whatever comes after that, it has to be configured within a task that gets qualified when the user says this. Okay, now if you want at the designing stage to specify that this task should be qualified, once again, just hover your mouse over here, click on this, click on note, and you can define a timeline, okay, which starts with a hash, okay, then you say start, okay, followed by the name of the task, something like this. Let's say check balance. I'm going to name the task as check balance. So this will tell the developers that, okay, if the user says this, now whatever comes after this should be configured within a task called check balance. Okay, so that is the purpose of adding notes. It's not mandatory to add notes, but if you want to add these kind of bot actions, define bot actions within the flow that you are designing, you can always add notes for it. But basically the design is all about what messages are expected to be exchanged between the bot and the user. Any questions on this? Okay, so yes. These are additional information to the developers. It becomes easier to understand actually who is referring over here, instead of, if you're not adding this note, like let's say today you are the business analyst, okay, and there's another person who's actually going to build a task, okay. Business analysts do not know about the configurations, okay, they do not know how to configure a task. So if a developer is looking into this without a note, okay, then he says that, okay, if the user says yes, this is the message, how will the developer understand that this balance will actually come from an external source? Okay, so to add these kind of bot actions, okay, you can always add notes, okay, or when the user sees this, all of these messages following it, all these interactions following it should be configured within a particular task. So what will be the name of the task? These are certain things which are decided by the business analysts. Okay, so to pass on these information to the developers, you can add notes within the design that you are creating. Okay, does that answer your question? Now, let me go in for the other flow. Okay, that is, this was a flow triggered for yes. Let me just select no from here, and let's keep it simple right now, that the bot, if the user says no, the bot says okay, uh, canceling the task. Okay, something like this. Okay, you can have a very elaborate message that we can start over whenever you want to check your account balance or something like that. You can have your own message displayed. Now, after this, okay, the user responds with a no, the bot says, okay, canceling the task. And let's say this also, that flow should also end with the message, what else can I do for you? This is the last message of this particular task, that is the check balance task. Now, when you are in the flow for the user response of no, after this message, you once again want to display a message that has been already defined in another flow. I have created a flow for yes. There I have defined a message that is, what else can I do for you? I want the same message to be displayed after this particular message of the bot. Okay, two ways. One is, once again, I click on bot says and I define that message all over again. What else can I do for you? Okay, the other way around is, since that has already been defined in another flow within this particular design, I can connect to that particular message. Instead of redefining the same thing again and again, I can connect to that particular message. How do we do that? We come to this three lines, horizontal lines, and we get this link a message option. We just click on link a message, which opens the entire conversation that we have designed in a flow view. All you need to do over here is select the node, from where you would like to resume your conversation. So I would like to connect to this particular node. That is, what else can I do for you? So all I need to do over here is just click on this node, and the platform or the bot will verify or confirm that you want to link to this message. I'll say yes, and we get that message linked over here. Okay, so you don't have to define same things again and again. If you have defined a flow, you want the same flow to be triggered, all you need to do is connect to that particular message from where you want to trigger the same flow all over again. Now, once you have completed the design like this, you can always click on the preview button to see how it will look. How it will give you a simulation of the conversation that you have designed. Okay, so you can see in a conversation window, it will show you how the conversation will look if a task is built to represent this particular design. So I click on yes over here. You can see the entire conversation that you have designed for yes coming up. Okay, if you just restart it once again and you click on no, you will see the other flow is triggered. Okay, so okay, canceling the task, and then once again you can see the linked message coming up. What else can I do for you? Okay, so this was just preview of what we have designed. You can customize the look and feel of the conversation window by changing the colors, the background image of the page where the bot is being displayed. So you can just click on that customize button. You can add background image. You can change the chat widget, that is the window, the chat window. Okay, so if you just go over here and you just click on dark theme, you can see the entire look and feel changes over here. You can change the user message, that is the bubble color over here, the text message of the user message. Okay, similarly for bot message, you can make changes in the bot messages. Okay, and once you customize the look and feel, you can save it and see how those customizations will affect the chat window. Now, once you complete all these designs and you see the preview of it, exit from here. And the main purpose why we went in for this design is to get an approval from all the stakeholders, maybe your client for whom you're building this particular task, or maybe your other team members, to see whether they have some suggestions on this or not. So you can click on the share button over here, which will give you a link which can be shared with others. Okay, you can password protect the link if you want. So just copy this link, share it with others. They do not need to have access to the bot builder. They can directly open the link in their browsers, okay, and see the entire design that has been created. Okay, so you can see directly in the browser, the entire conversation window is displayed with the design inside it, the conversation flowing as per the design. Okay, and once you see all of these, as a stakeholder, you can also add your own comments over here. So you click here, you click on add comment. Okay, just type in your name, your email address. It's coming for me because I've used this before, but you can type it in. Click on next over here, and let's say we add a comment over here. Okay, something like this. We click on submit. So you can always, as a stakeholder, you can always add your comments by clicking on this comment button. Now, once this comments has been shared, it has been approved by all. As a designer of the chatbot, of this conversation, if you come back here, click on these comment buttons, you get to see all the comments coming up over here. Okay, so you can see all these comments coming up over here. Changes can be made as per the comment by clicking on the edit button. And once this design is approved by all, what we can do here is that we can change the status of this to approved, okay, something like that. And once the design has been approved, what we can do is we can start building tasks to represent this particular design. Okay, uh, is the purpose of storyboard clear to all of you? Okay, so now let's build a task to represent this design. Okay. So we come to dialogue tasks. There are different types of tasks, but a dialogue task is a conversation task. So there were a lot of configurations there, lot of messages to be exchanged between the bot and the user, information to be captured, the account number. Okay, then a decision to be made that whether the account number entered by the user is a correct one or not, then making a service call that whether that account number is approved by the user, using the account number approved by the user, making a service call, displaying the response to the user. So a lot of configuration actually. So all of these configurations goes into a dialog task. So let us start off by clicking on create a dialog task, and here the first thing that we give is a name of the dialog task. Remember, the name of the dialog task should be a combination of nouns and verbs only. Okay, so do not go in for adding, check my balance. That word my is not required over here. Or please check balance. Okay, the word please is not required in the task name. Those are pleasantries that we are using. So your dialog task name should be confined to nouns and verbs, and maximum 3 to 5 words within the task name. Don't go in for a very elaborate name with a huge number of words inside it. It will affect the working of the NLP engine later on, which you will understand when we discuss NLP. But keep it to 3 to 5 words maximum, and combination of nouns and verbs only. But again, you have a section for description where you can add your description. Okay, so you can type in your description over here, and here you can provide the different utterances that can come from the user when they want to perform the task. Okay, something like I can say check balance. Okay, the user can say, just say check balance, or the user can say how much money do I have? Or the user can say, can my account afford some spending? So these are different ways in which the user can ask for this task. So all you need to do is type in your different utterances over here, press enter to add those utterances. But I'm not doing this right now because we are going to discuss NLP training tomorrow, which will make it very clear to you all what is happening here. So we just leave this blank right now. We just put a name of the task and the description over here, and we click on proceed. Okay, so that will bring you to the dialog builder. Okay, and the dialog task will be built as interconnected nodes. There will be different types of nodes to represent each component. Okay, so interconnection of nodes, and the first node that is always added by default to a dialog task is the user intent node. Remember, intent means a task. Okay, what the user wants to do. So the user intent node, you can see the properties window of this particular node opened here. And in the component properties, you can see the display name is the name of the task actually, the description that we have added. Every node that you add in your dialog task will have a unique name. The name of a node cannot contain a space or any special character other than an underscore. So you can see the name of the task by default has been used as the name of the user intent node. Only the space has been replaced with an underscore. You can leave it as it is, or you can make a change in the name of the user intent node. It does not matter. Okay, I will leave it as it is. The other two tabs is the connections property, which will show you the transitions from this node. That is, what is the next node in execution. Right now, no nodes are defined. So you can see the plus sign coming up over here to extend the conversation. And you can see the connection rule says it is not connected. And the third tab is the NLP properties tab. I'm just keeping the NLP discussion for tomorrow, so I'm not going into the details today. Okay, so we close this particular properties window, and once the intent has been identified as per the design, the next thing was the bot should prompt the user for the account number. Now, if you just recollect right at the starting, I said intent identification is one thing. Okay, so this is the intent. Okay, how it will be identified, that is the NLP training part. We will discuss that in details tomorrow. But once the intent has been identified, to complete that particular task or intent, the bot will need some information, and those were referred to as entities. So here, when I say the bot is going to prompt the user for an account number is an entity which is required to complete this particular task. Okay, so here the next thing, once the intent has been identified, the next is the bot is going to prompt for an account number. So we click on that plus sign. You can see different types of nodes that you can use when you are building your dialog task. And we are going to start off with an entity node, which will allow the bot to capture information from the user. So we click on entity over here and add a new entity node. So that adds a new entity node into your dialog and opens the properties window of this entity node. Let's look into the different properties here. First is the name of the entity. Okay, the platform will always generate a unique name in this way, but I would suggest to not leave it as this, because this name does not tell you anything about what is that entity all about. So it's always good to name your entity in a proper way, so that looking at the name of the entity, you understand the purpose of that entity. You can leave it at the default name, there's no harm, because the platform will automatically generate these unique names. That is the type of the node followed by a numeric value. Okay, so I name it as account ID over here. Display name is a descriptive name of this description of this particular entity name. So display name actually allows spaces and all. You can keep it as the same as the entity name. You can put something like this as well. Okay, it does not matter. Press an enter after that, and then you have the type of the entity. It's very important to select the type correctly, because the bot will validate the input coming from the user using the type. So when I say, account ID has to be a numeric input, that means the type of the entity should be a number. Account ID has to be, or let's say this entity has to be a date. I'm expecting the input from the user as a date. Then the entity type has to be a date. Or if the user needs to provide an email address, that means the entity type has to be email. Okay. So selecting the type correctly will help the bot to validate the input coming from the user. The default is string, which is unformatted type. Anything can be acceptable. So string should be your last resort. At times we do use string when we want to accept any input coming from the user, but always try to select a type correctly. So when you click there, you get a drop-down list from where you can see all the built-in types which are supported by your platform. I'll be sharing a documentation link where you have a discussion on all the types which are available. As in the training, it's not possible to discuss all the types, okay? But I'll be, of course, discussing a few types which we use regularly. So right now, account ID is a number, so I change the type to a number. Okay, now when I change it to a number, it means any number, okay, any number that can be entered by the user. Yeah, dialogue task intent is a, now intent can be an FAQ, intent can be a small talk like a greeting. Intent means what the user wants to do. Okay, it can be an entire conversation that is triggered through a dialogue task. It can be an FAQ that the bot needs to just answer. It can be a greetings coming from the user, the bot needs to respond to that greeting. So all of these are intents. Intent means what the user wants to do. Okay, so we cannot say intent only means a dialogue task. Dialogue task is one of the intents. Okay. Now, coming back to the type that we were discussing, That is now at times we have some more. It's not very simple. Okay, so you can see the date over here, you can see email over here, you can see, you know, number over here. You are expecting some noun as an input. Okay, like the name of a person, we can change it to person name. Okay, you can see time over here, you can see phone number, which is a US format phone number is acceptable. So you can see some predefined types over here. But at times, you know, these predefined types may not be enough to handle the input coming from the user. Something like, let's say I say, account ID is a number, but it is a combination of 10 digits. Okay, so just saying it is a number is not enough, because the user can type in one also, the user can type in 1,000 also. So we cannot specify the, you know, a number of digits that is acceptable. So in these cases, how can you do it? We have something called a custom entity over here. So click on custom entity, and when you say the entity type is custom, the platform allows you to define a regular expression which will be used to validate the input coming from the user. And we support JavaScript, JavaScript regular expressions. Okay, the platform will handle all regular expressions which are defined using JavaScript. So all the operators that you can use in JavaScript to define regular expressions, that can be used here also. So something like this, if I say it's you know, numbers. Okay, so either you can say it in this way, 0 to 9. This is one way of defining numbers, and it should be a combination of 10 digits. So within curly braces 10. So this is one way of defining a regular expression which will be used to validate the input coming from the user. And this regular expression says that the input of the user is confined to digits only, 0 to 9, and it should be a combination of 10 digits. Okay, so if you have a range, okay, like let's say 6 to 10 digits, so you can always say 6 comma 10. Okay, so just refer to JavaScript, see how regular expressions can be defined in JavaScript, and in the same way you can do it over here also. If you want a combination of you know, alpha letters and numbers, something like this, you can say in lowercase, you can say it is A to Z, combination of 2 letters. Okay, followed by digits, like /d is also for digits, combination of 8 digits. So these are different regular expressions that you can use to validate the input coming from the user. Okay, so yeah, so this is CC followed by something like this. So CC is either you can directly specify the letters, or if it is any letters, something like that. Or let's say if it is a savings account. Okay, so in India we refer to it as SB. Okay, savings bank account, something like that. So if you have defined letters like that, you can put it here. It means that these two letters has to be there followed by digits. Okay, so just define your regular expression, refer to JavaScript for that. I'm not going into the details because this involves JavaScript knowledge. So all of y'all who want to use custom entity types, make sure that you refer to JavaScript in order to see how you can build regular expressions there. And all the regular expressions built in JavaScript are supported on our platform. Okay, the recent version. Okay, I don't remember the version number, but the recent version of JavaScript is supported on our platform. Okay, just send me this message, this question on mail. I'll respond back to that. I don't remember the JavaScript version number, but it's a recent version that is supported on our platform. Okay. Now coming back, I'm keeping it simple over here as a number because many of you may not be conversant with JavaScript. So let's just keep it as a number here. Now, once you have defined the type, then comes the user prompt section where you define the prompts to be used by the bot when the bot is prompting the user for the account number. Okay, so the prompt that we had provided in our design, that is, what is your account number? Okay, something like this. Press and enter after you provide the prompt. But you can add multiple prompts, okay? You are not only restricted to a single prompt. This is simulating a human behavior. That is, we do not use a single statement always. We use different phrases to create our questions, okay? So to define our questions. So something like this, please provide your account number, okay? Or the bot can ask something simple, account number, okay? Or okay, something like this. So you can add as many prompts as you want. Any one of these prompts will be picked up at a random and displayed to the user. You cannot define the order of the prompts, remember that, okay? So any one of these prompts will be picked up by the bot when the user is performing this task. The bot is performing this task for the user. Any one of these prompts will be picked up and displayed to the user. You can add as many prompts as you want, okay? You can also make your prompts channel specific. That means, let's say today at the end of all the configurations, I'm going to enable 2 channels which can be used by the users to connect to this bot, okay? Let's say the user can talk to this bot through emails. So the email channel will be enabled and the user can directly talk to the bot from the browser, okay? So the web channel will be initiated for this particular bot. So 2 different ways in which the users can connect to the bot, either through emails or directly from the website, okay, or through through the browser, or maybe additional channels like the user can connect to the bot from Facebook Messenger or Skype. So these are different ways or channels in which the user can connect to the bot. Now, I want that if the user is talking to the bot using emails and the user is performing this task, the user is checking his account balance. So instead of displaying one of these messages, a separate prompt should be presented to the user as the user is connected to the bot over the email channel. So what I'm trying to do over here is that if the user connects to the bot over a particular channel, then a specific prompt should be displayed to the user. This is known as channel override prompt. Now, how do you add channel overrides for prompts? Click on manage prompt messages, okay? And when you click on manage prompt messages, it brings you to the configuration screen of the prompt messages. Click on add prompt message over here. Select the channel for which you want to define the prompt. You can see all the channels over here which are supported by our platform. So select the channel from here. Remember, this channel has to be later enabled before the bot is deployed to the end user or published to the end users. But at this stage, since I plan to add this channel to the bot, I'm adding a channel override. So select the channel for which you want to add an override and provide your prompt over here. So I put something like this, email your account number. So now this means that if I'm connected to the bot over any channel, then one of these general prompts will be picked up and displayed to the user. But if I'm connected to the bot over the email channel, then this particular prompt will be displayed to the user. So for a given channel, the message or the prompt that has been provided for that channel takes a precedence over the general prompts that has been defined. But when you're defining a channel override, remember there has to be at least one general prompt that is added for the entity with which you are working currently. Okay, any questions on this channel override? Okay. Now, once you define your prompts, now there's no rule that you have to go in for multiple prompts. Okay, it's totally up to you. You can have a single prompt. You can have one general prompt with multiple channel overrides if you want. You can have multiple general prompts with channel overrides also. But remember, when it is multiple prompts like this, any one of it will be picked up and displayed to the user. We are still in dialog task. All these configurations are in dialog task. Okay, all these multiple configurations cannot go anywhere else. These are different nodes that you're adding into the dialog task to build that conversation that you have designed. So in the design, what we were doing is we were prompting the user for the account number. That account number will be stored within an entity similar to a variable. Okay, in a program, when you want to prompt the user for some value, you create a variable. Here you are creating an entity, and these are the configurations of the entity. How the bot is going to ask the user. We had provided a single statement like enter your account number, but when you are actually implementing the task, think of the variations. You are simulating a human being over here as a conversational partner. So instead of always having the same prompt, you can provide multiple different types of prompts. Okay, any one of it will be displayed to the user. Also, maybe for a given channel, there are some limitations. Okay, so for a particular channel on which the user will connect, maybe a specific prompt needs to be presented to the user. Then you can provide a channel override. All of these configurations are a part of a dialog task. Okay. And finally, the error prompt over here, which will be displayed to the user if the input of the user does not match with the type. So the type of this entity is a number. And if the user types in anything other than a number, like let's say when the bot is prompting the user for the account number, the user types in ABC, which is not a number. Okay, in that case, the bot will come back with this error message. Okay, you can leave it as it is. You can make changes on this. Let's say I did not recognize the account number you have entered, something like this. Please enter a number again. Okay, now how many times the bot will re-prompt the user for the account number? Okay, that can be controlled from the next tab within the configuration, that is the instance property, which tells you the number of allowed retries is 5. So 5 times the bot is going to allow the user to enter the account number if the input of the user does not match with the type of the entity. So if the type of the entity is a number, user types in anything other than a number, the error prompt will be displayed and the bot will re-prompt the user for the account number. Similarly, if let's say we have defined an entity which is of the type date, the user types in anything other than a date, the error prompt will be displayed and the bot will re-prompt the user for the date. Now, how many times? 5 times. Even within these 5 times, if the user does not provide an input which matches with the type of the entity, then the conversation will be terminated. Okay, the bot will terminate this particular task. Okay, so you can see end of dialogue over here. That means the conversation comes to an end. You can change the number of retries from here. Maximum is 5, which is the default, but you can limit it to a lesser number of retries as well. So if I put 3 over here, maximum 3 times the user can provide the account number. Okay, you can add your own error prompts also. In that case, any one of these error prompts will be picked up and displayed to the user. If you want to provide channel overrides of error prompts, just like the user prompts, click on manage error messages over here, click on add error message, select the channel and provide your error prompt over here for the given channel. Okay, so in this way, the same way like prompts, you can also add your error messages. So I just keep it at the default one by making a small little change over here, and we close the window for the configuration of the entity. We have a lot more configurations. We'll discuss this later on. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. Now, once the user provides the account number, the next stage was to validate or verify this account number with the user. That is, are you sure you want to proceed with this account number, and present a choice to the user of yes and no. Okay, for that particular purpose, when you are continuing with building the conversation within the dialog task, you have something called a confirmation node. which will present a choice of yes and no to the user. So here I'm going to select confirmation node and add a new confirmation node. Okay. Now within the confirmation node, uh, this is something which is repetitive everywhere whenever you create a node, that is provide a name to the node. Okay, the naming is totally up to you how you want to name your nodes. I follow a system like this. I put the purpose, okay, and different words separated by an underscore, because that is the only supported special character. But you can name your nodes in any way. Only remember, you cannot put spaces in the names of the nodes, and the special character allowed is underscore. So your node names can be letters and numbers only. Okay, but always name it correctly, because you will see later on this name becomes very helpful when you want to refer to a particular node within the dialog task somewhere else. The name of the node will help you to understand which node to use. Okay, so name your nodes correctly. I'm keeping the display name same over here. And now we come to the user prompt. Okay, what is the message that will be presented to the user? So going back to my design, are you sure? Are you sure you want to proceed with account number? Now in the design, I had put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that is a static value. Okay, so I do not want this static value to be displayed here. I want the account number entered by the user within this particular entity. Okay, so this entity is like a variable. It is holding the account number which the user has provided when the bot prompted for the account number. I want that account number to be displayed here. So going back to the initial discussions when we were discussing the features of Core AI Spots platform, we have a context object, okay, which holds all the information for a particular task. Okay, so this account number entered by the user in this entity should be available in the context. How do we get that? Okay, so you open your double curly braces over here, you say context. Okay, so here I'm referring to the context which holds the state of the conversation. All the information that is required in this task will be always available within the context. Okay, so this information that we have captured from the user is available in the context. So I say within double curly braces context dot, immediately an autofill box comes up. From here I select entities dot the name of the entity. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying that at this point, along with this message, display the account ID which is stored within this entity. And where is this entity available? This entity is available within the context, which is right now holding all the information for this particular dialog task, because this is the dialog task that has been qualified by the NLP. Okay, so context.entities.account.id. I close the double curly braces and let's add a question mark. Since this is a question, I'm just adding a question mark over here. Okay, any questions on how we are displaying the account ID to the user? Now coming to the display of the confirmation options, since this is a confirmation node, I want to display those choices of yes and no to the user. Okay, by default, the choices of yes and no are not displayed to the user, but if we want to display the choices, make sure that you enable the display of the choices to the user. Okay, so enable the display of the choices from here by selecting the first option. And if you close this confirmation window, you can see the confirmation window with alternate flows coming out of here. So you can see the second one is if the user selects yes, and the third one is if the user selects no. Now with this confirmation, with this flow till here, how will it actually look? Okay, we have the talk to the bot icon, which will help you to see the flows that you are building. Okay, it is always good to test your flows to see whether the flows that you are building over here will actually represent what you have in your design. Okay, so we click on talk to the bot, which opens a conversation window for me. Okay, you can have the debug logs on, which is always good, because if anything goes wrong, you get to see it in the debug logs. And since we have not trained NLP till now, we are going to use the name of the task. What is the name of the task? The name of the task is sorry, it should have been check balance. 1 second. I have named the task incorrectly. That was an incorrect name that I had provided. Okay, check account doesn't, you can leave it as check account, but I prefer check balance, so I just make changes accordingly. Coming back to the conversation window, I say check balance. That is the name of my task, so I just put it over here. You can see in the debug logs, the intent node has been initiated because the task has been identified. The bot is prompting for the account number. Okay, now if I type in something that is not a number, you can see the error prompt coming up. Okay, and asking the user to enter the number once again. Now if I type in a number over here, any number like this, then we get to see the confirmation window coming up. Are you sure you want to proceed with account number followed by the number entered by the user? Now, how we are getting this? This is coming from the entity, okay, which is there in the context. How do you get to see in the debug window the entity? You can come to session context and variables. You can see entities over here. And currently the account ID entity is holding the value of 2, which we had provided when the bot was prompting for the account number. Two choices to the user. What happens if the user says yes? What happens if the user says no? Now, right now, if I click on yes, nothing is going to happen because we have not defined the flows here. So you will see the bot comes back with, I don't know what you're asking for. Okay. So now let's continue with the rest of the flow. But is it clear till here?
Yes.
The design is just to define how you're going to build this particular task. Okay, so if you go back to the design, okay, you will see whatever I have done in the design, that is what I'm implementing within the task. Okay, so the user responds with the account number. Now the confirmation node presenting the account number for confirmation with the user, the two choices, yes and no. And now if the user says yes, I'm going to define the flow over here. And if the user says no, I'm going to define the flow accordingly. Okay, so designing is what you're laying down. Okay, this is expected flow, and task is actually you're building that. Okay, so if you just design, you cannot deploy the bot and ask the users to perform the task. It is only when you build the task that you're giving shape to this particular design. Okay, so that is what you need to do. So exactly what I have designed, I'm building that. Okay, it's a very good question how we relate actually. And we have a feature where you can design and it automatically creates a task. I'll show it to you all later on. But first, let's understand how actually it works. Now, since I have two flows only, yes and no, I want to remove this additional flows. Okay, now how do we do that? Because a dialog task, a confirmation node comes with a lot of flows. So we come to the connections property over here, which defines the flows. Okay, you can see 4 flows over here. The first is if you want to check for any other value which is captured in this particular task, okay, and define a flow accordingly. That is the first one where you can define your condition over here. I don't want to do something like that, so I just click on the delete button to remove that. Now, if the user says yes, what is going to happen? If the user says no, what is going to happen? The last else is if the user says anything other than yes or no, then what is going to happen? Now, I don't want to provide that choice also to the user. I want to restrict the user to responding to yes and no only. So that is why I remove the last choice also. That is what will happen if the user says anything other than yes or no. If you want to display some error message or something, you can keep that else available here. Okay, but I just don't want to do that. I want to keep it to yes and no. We save this rule, okay, by clicking on the save button and we close this. So you can see two flows coming out of this confirmation node. That is what will happen if the user says yes and what will happen if the user says no. Now, as per the design, if the user says yes, we want to fetch the balance. Okay. Now for that, you have to connect to some external source. Okay. Where will the balance of the user be found? There has to be some external table or something where, all user details are there. Okay. And this bot should fetch the balance from that particular table using the account number the user has entered. Now create your table in any external service. Okay, so you can use any database services to create your table, as long as that service gives you an API to access that particular table. Okay, that is a restriction. We can connect to external services from the tasks that you are building within the bot only by using APIs. Okay, there are no other ways in which you can connect. Now, for demonstration purpose of how to use APIs in order to fetch information from the tasks that you are building in the bot, I have used an online service called Mock API. You have a lot of services like this. If your organization has some internal service, you can use that. I have used mockapi.io services. Okay, you can create your account here. I'm not going to go into details of this because this is actually an external service, but let me just quickly show you all something how we can use this particular service. So you can go to mockapi.io website, you can create an account, and once you create an account, you can build tables inside it. Okay, so you can see over here I have a table called account. Okay, so you can click on new resources. Okay, a project is a collection of multiple tables. Okay, so you can create a project and create tables inside it. So new resource, if you click on new resource, it will allow you to define the schema. Okay, so give a name to it, give a name to your table, define your schema over here. You can see the schema that I have defined for my account table. Click on edit and it will show the schema. So I have account ID, account name, account type, and balance. Okay, the types which are supported, string, number, or date. You can see it over here. These are different types which are supported. Object ID column is a special column available in mock API services only. And this is a column which will be always unique. Okay, and it will be auto-generated whenever a new row is inserted. You can define one column as an object ID column when you are using mock API services. Now, please create your table. Okay, I'm not sharing the link because I keep using it, but you can always create your table like this. Any service, there's no rule that you have to create with mock API. It is actually used, this service is used for testing purposes or training purposes. So you can create your account, create your table over here. You can see the API, the name of the table is this. If you want to see the data which is there in this table, it is in the JSON format that you can see right now. And how do you access this table using the API? This is the API, and here you need to provide your table name. So you can see I have used it like that, the API along with the table name. Now, as a bot developer, you are not responsible to create the APIs, but during the training, you can utilize it. Okay, you can utilize online services. There are multiple services like this. You can utilize any service. Okay, no restriction once again that you have to use mock API. I use it because it is very convenient to use, and you can define a column there which can be auto-generated and things like that. But you can use any service which gives you an API. That is the only restriction you should be remembering. Okay. Now, once you have a table like this, how do I connect and fetch the data in this particular table? For that purpose, I come back to the bot, and here if the user responds with an yes, you can see the color coding, okay? The teal color and the teal color over here. If the user says yes, now I create a service node which will allow me to do an API configuration. So I create a service node and I add a new service node. Okay. Now within a service node, we can add the APIs. So give a name to your service node. Let's say fetch balance. Okay. It's a custom web service, okay? And then you come to define request over here, click on define request, and here you can configure your API. What kind of a call? It's a get call because we are fetching details using the API. So it is a get call right now. We add the API over here, that is the URL. So just copy the API that you would like to use and put it here. Now, if I use the API all by itself, it returns all the rows of the table. I do not want all the rows. I just want a row which is related to the account number the user has provided. That is, we are going to add a query parameter. Okay, now for mock API service, if your filter condition is on the column which is defined as object ID, because if you come here, you will see account ID is defined as an object ID column. Okay, so if it is on the object ID column, we can directly specify the value. That is, if I say 10 here, okay, and I click on testing the API to see how the API is returning a response. So I just click on test over here. Sorry. You can see it returns the row for 10. Okay, so that is for a fixed account number that I have added over here, that is 10. Now I want this to be replaced with the value entered by the user. Now where is that value available? It is available within that entity account ID. Now how do I pass that entity over here? Again, just like the way in the prompt, I open double curly braces, I say context dot entities dot the name of the entity. So context dot entities dot object ID. So whatever is stored within this entity, that will be used as a query parameter, and the API call will be triggered with that value, and the row will be returned for that particular account number. Okay, if you want to test your request to see whether your API is working or not, come to test request, provide a value. So make sure that you provide a value which has a row within the table right now. As of now, we will handle the variation also. So provide a value over here, click on test, and it will show you the response. So within the API response, you can see the body of the response, and within the body, you have the column names with the expected value. What we are interested in is in the balance column and the value available in the balance column. Okay, once you have tested it, save this as a sample response so that whenever you come back to this configuration page, you can see what is the expected response of the API and save the configurations here. If your query parameter is on any other column other than object ID, put a question mark here, column name equal to the value. Okay, so that can be a context object like this. So within double curly braces, context dot entities followed by the value, or any other value, or if it is not on context object directly a value, then you can just specify the value over there. Okay, whichever API service you are using, refer to the documentation of that API or services to see how you can use query parameters in your API call. What I'm discussing here is with reference to mock API. Okay, but that is not a standard. I won't say that you have to use mock API. You can use any external services. Is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay. Now, once you save this configuration, come out from here, and this API call returns, you can drag and drop your nodes as you want. Okay. So this API call fetches the row with the account number entered by the user. And now we want to display that balance to the user. So we come to a message node which can be used to present bot responses. So we come to a message node, create a new message node here. Let's name it as something like this, balance message. And here we say the dollar, Okay, now we want to display that balance which has been returned in the API response. So once again, within double curly braces, remember the row that is returned by the service call is once again available within that context object. All the information is available there. So we once again say context dot the name of the service node where the API call is made. So it is fetch balance. That is why you should name your nodes correctly, so that looking at the name you would understand. Okay, so I'll just take 5 more minutes to complete this configuration, then we'll take a break. So context dot fetch balance dot response. Okay, that is the API response. Now within the response we have the body. Okay, so we have seen that in when we tested it, the entire response which displays the row or fetches the details of a row for an account number, it has the body. Okay, and within the body of the response we have the column with the respective values. So all I say is body dot balance, that is the column uh, for which I want to display the value over here. Okay, so once again, context dot name of the service node dot response. Within the response, we have seen the body is there, so body, and within the body, we have the balance. Okay, so context dot fetch balance dot response dot body dot balance. So that will display the balance that is returned by the API call for the account number entered by the user. Is it clear to you all how we are accessing the balance from the API response? Okay, and once that is displayed, I'm going to display the last message. What else can I do for you? Okay, so that was the last message in my designing, conversation designing. So let me just name this node as what else. Sorry. Okay, and since this was the last message in my conversation, okay, so I come to the connections property and I say this is the end of dialogue. That means my task comes to an end once the bot displays this message to the user. What else can I do for you? Okay, this particular task comes to an end. Let's quickly define the flow for no. What happens if the user says no over here? So this flow is very simple. As of now, we are just displaying a simple message to the user. So let's see. Okay. And here I say, I'm just following the design. So canceling the task. Okay. And followed by the message, what else can I do for you? So I don't create another message node. Already I have a message node with the message, what else can I do for you? So I just come to the connections property of this message node and select the node to which I want to connect. Okay, so I come here and I select the node, what else? Okay, so we just select where we want to connect and click on save. So if you close this, you will see this node. You can always drag and drop the nodes to have clarity in the flows. So you can see after this message, what else can I do for you? So this is the entire task to represent that design that we had created. Let's talk to the bot and see whether we are getting the flows executed as expected or not. Let me just have the debug logs on. And once again, here I put check balance. Okay, provide an account number. Okay, and we verify it. I say yes, this is the account number. You can see the balance in your account is this. If you come back to the API for that is to the table for account number 4, the balance is 2000. That is what we are getting to see. What else can I do for you? Once again, if I say check balance, just to see the flow for no. So let's provide an account number and we say no over here. Then you can see the alternate flow is triggered, canceling the task. What else can I do for you? Okay, is it clear to you all what we are doing? Any questions on this? Okay, let's take a break And then we will continue our discussion first with what happens if the service call fails, because we cannot assume that the service call will always return a row. The user can provide an account number for which no details are found in the table. How do we handle that kind of a situation? And then we will continue with the rest of the configurations. So let's take a break of 10 minutes and then continue with the discussion. 10 minutes. I hope all of you all are back from the break, and let's continue with this particular task. And here, once again, I'm going back to the service node configuration. And here, whenever you're going in for these kind of configuration, you have to, always consider the possibilities. Okay. So maybe the user provides an account number, he verifies the account number, but still there are no rows found with that account number. Okay, this is always a possibility. So in case no rows are found with an account number, first we need to understand what is the response. Okay, the API response. Because depending on the API response, we are going to define flows within our conversation. Excuse me, where maybe we display an error message to the user that sorry, your account number is incorrect, we cannot find any rows, any information with the account number you have provided, something like that. But that error message will be displayed depending on the response returned by the API call. So like we can see that when an row is found with the account number entered by the user, this is how the response looks. Now you can see there is one component outside the body of the response, which is status code, which is 200. Now you will see if you look into APIs which can be used, okay, in any service, you will see every API has a kind of a status code. Typically the 200 or 201, these are all success codes. That is, the API has worked correctly. It has returned a response as expected. And you will see the APIs usually return an error code in the range of 400, that is 400, 401, or 500 range. These are all error codes which can be returned if the API call fails. Okay, so how do we see that what is the error codes which are returned by this particular service, that is mock API? Once again, it depends on the API service that you are using, and you should be referring to the documentation of the service that you are using. Okay, here since I'm using mock API services, let me just provide an account number for which there are no rows in the table, and click on the test button over here to see what is the change in the response. And immediately you can see the status code, okay, has changed to 404, okay, which is actually an error code. And you can see in the body it shows us not found, that is no rows are found. So it is the status code which will tell me that whether a row has been found or a row has not been found, okay, for mock API services. So I'm going to use this particular parameter in the response, in the API response, because this is there in both the cases. Once it is 200, where in the body I can see the row that has been fetched, and if no rows are found, then the status code has changed to 404. So it is the status code parameter in the API response which will tell me whether the API has worked or not. Okay, so you can see C is in capital. It is very important to note it because this is a little case sensitive. So once we understand what is the change in the API response, if there are no rows found, and I'm repeating once again that these things change as per the service that you are using. Typically these are standard error codes and all, that is 200, 201, and all these are always success responses. Responses in 400 or 500 are always error codes that you get. Okay, but refer to the documentation of the API service. But once you understand what kind of a response is returned, now what we are going to do is we are going to define a flow to handle that error. Okay, the possibility where the user provides an account number, but there are no rows found with that account number. Okay, so before we go in to display the balance to the user, we would like to check whether a row has been returned correctly or not, from where we can fetch the balance. How do we do that? Now here, in order to add a node between two existing nodes, you can always hover your mouse over the connection lines between the two nodes, and you get the option to add a new node. Click here to add a node, and now we add a logic node to define this if else condition. Okay, because depending on the response of this API call, which is configured within the fetch balance, I'm going to define alternate flows. Okay, so I'm going to add a logic node in order to do that. So I go to a logic node, I add a new logic node over here. Okay, and for this particular logic node, okay, and for this particular logic node, let me just 1 second. Okay, let me just give a name to this logic node first. That is okay, so something like this: validate response or API response, and then we come to the connections property over here, and you can see by default it is connected to the message node, but we are adding an if condition over here, and within this if condition, what are we testing for? We are checking for the status code in the API call. How do we refer to it? Once again, we say context dot the name of the service node where the API call is made, dot response, and within the response we have the status code, and the status code was with C in capital. Okay, so context dot fetch balance dot response dot status code, and in the next text box over here you get all the operators that you can use when you want to define these kind of conditions. Okay, so if it is equal to 200, which we have seen is the status code if a row is found, then we continue to display the balance to the user, because a status code of 200 means the body of the response will contain the row that has been returned by the API call. So I go to the message node where we are displaying the balance back to the user. So this is the name of the message node. I connect to that. Else means the status code is anything other than 200. Okay, so then I'm going to display an error message, but that error message has not yet been defined. So I just keep it as not connected so that I get that plus sign from where I can define the alternate flow. Let me explain this once again. What I'm trying to do over here is I would request all of you all to be on mute, and you can unmute yourself whenever you have questions. Okay, so once again, coming back over here, I'm defining alternate flows depending on the status code returned by the API call. So here what I'm doing is I'm adding a logic node, okay, and within the logic node, we can see if the status code. Now, how do I access the status code? It is a part of the response of the API call. So if context.fetchBalance.response.status code, if it is equal to 200, then we transition to the node where we are presenting the balance to the user. Else we are going to display an error message to the user. We have not defined that error message till now, so I've just kept it as not connected here, and we click on the save button to save this particular connections rule within the logic. One thing to note over here is still now within the message nodes and the prompts, whenever we want to display some entity nodes or some value from the response of the API call, we had used the double curly braces. But when we are referring to some component that is returned in the response of the API call, or if we are defining a if condition depending on a value captured within an entity node, we do not need the double curly braces. So double curly braces around context objects is required when you are using these within the prompts, the messages, and the service call integrations. But when you are using the same objects within the if conditions or within JavaScripts and all, you do not need the double curly braces. Okay, so that is why I have not used the double curly braces over here. Let's close this. 1 second, there has been some error here. 1 second. Okay, I made this mistake. Just let me correct my flow. Okay, I have incorrectly. This is fine. Let me just refresh it once. The flow is not defined, displayed correctly as it is given in the connection rules. That should not happen by default, but I don't know why it is happening now. Let me just refresh it and see it. Okay, yeah. So this is what I wanted. So from the service node, it comes to the logic node where we check for the status, and depending on the status, if it is 200, we continue with the balance message where we display the balance back to the user. Okay. Now coming to the alternate flow over here, what happens if the user, if the bot or the API call does not return a row where the status code is not equal to 200. So we have the else condition. We have not defined the flow as of yet. So you can see the option to extend the flow from here. So the first thing that we do is we display an error message to the user. Okay, so I create a new message node here to display an error message to the user. Let's name the node as account not found. Okay, and here first we present a message to the user. Um, okay, you can also display the account number so that it catches the attention of the user over here. So the same way, context, that is context dot entities dot account ID. Okay, so you can present the account number to the user. Okay, it will help the user to realize if there is some mistake. Okay, along with the error message, if we are presenting something like this, it will help the user to understand there has been something wrong in the account number that he has provided. Okay, now once you define this error message, what next? So maybe we would like to, define the flow in such a way that after this, we ask the user that, do you want to change your account number? Okay. And if the user says yes, we connect the user back to this entity node to once again enter another account number and trigger the flow again. Okay. And if the user says no, he doesn't want to enter the account number once again, we display this message that is okay, canceling the task, followed by what else can I do for you? So these are the two choices that we are presenting to the user. That would the user like to change the account number? At times that happens. We type in something, at first we are very confident, and later we realize, no, that was a wrong account number. That account number does not belong to this particular bank. I have used some incorrect account number. So it is always good that the bot presents the choice to me that, do I want to change the account number or not? Okay. So to define that flow, I'm going to add another confirmation node. Remember, whenever it is a yes, no choice, the best is going for a confirmation node. So I'm going to, add another confirmation node. Let's name this confirmation node as okay, new account ID confirm. So we just present a choice to the user. Okay, and present the choices yes and no to the user. Okay, come to the connection rule. Okay, I'm just going to handle yes and no choices. So I remove the alternate flows from here. Save this connection rules. One more configuration for a confirmation notice. At times, instead of saying yes and no, you all must have realized that either I can select from those two buttons, yes and no, or I can also type in my response. Okay, since this is a conversational UI, you cannot restrict the user to select the choices presented in the list, okay, or displayed within the conversation window. The user can also type in his response. As long as his response matches with the values which are expected, the conversation will flow as expected, as defined. Okay. Now, instead of typing in yes and no, the user can say go ahead, or the user might say change it. All of these actually mean yes. Okay, so they are synonyms of yes. Okay, when you are in a conversational UI, you always have to think of these possibilities. Think of a person who is sitting, okay, and he might say yes, he can say change it, okay, he can say proceed to change it, okay, or proceed, or let's go ahead, okay, uh, things like that, okay, which actually means yes. Okay, so those can be added as synonyms of yes. Okay, so let's say I over here I say go ahead, okay, or I say proceed, or I say change it. So if the user, instead of saying yes, says any one of these things, the bot should have the intelligence to understand what the user means is yes over here. Okay. Similarly, if the user says no or some synonyms of no, something like no, cancel it. Okay. So if the word cancel is there, that means it should be taken as no. Okay. Or if the user says something like this, something like some other synonyms of yes, you can find it out from the online dictionaries and all, and provide as many synonyms as possible. After each synonym, type enter to add that, press enter to add that synonym. Your conversation does not proceed actually. You have to provide a response. When the bot expects a response, you have to provide a response. Okay. If you are not providing a response, you are just sitting like that, without any response, your conversation stops over there. If you are adding anything other than yes and no, that error prompt will come up. Since this is a confirmation node, you can see there is an error prompt section also. So it will always restrict the user to yes and no. If you want to handle anything other than yes and no, in that case, you in the connection rules, you should have the last else. Okay, and then you can add a message node or something to define the alternate flows, how you want to handle any response other than yes or no. And you can add synonyms like I was showing right now to handle the possibilities if the user does not say yes but sees something other than yes which also means a yes. Okay, so that you can do it from the synonym section. Okay, but if you're not providing any input, you're just sitting over there, the conversation waits over there, and after 15 minutes of inactivity, the session comes to an end and the task is discarded automatically by the bot. Okay, so that is the behavior that you get. Is it
I
clear
got
to you?
one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, this is Romil. So these synonyms, are they exact match, or is it based on NLP?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you please repeat a little more
Are these
clearly?
synonyms based on exact match, or are these based on NLP?
These are NLP related. Exact match means yes, it has to be proceed. If you just type in PRO, it is not going to happen. Okay, and since you're providing synonyms, it can be partial match actually. Okay, go ahead. If you just type in ahead, it is usually taken. You have to just test it. But we provide the synonym in that way, that is the possible expected response of the user. Okay, and it is usually, yeah, proceed has to be mentioned as proceed. Now if you're asking about the case sensitivity, no, it does not matter. Okay, it can be in
Okay,
uppercase, lowercase, or anything. Okay, as long as it is proceed, it works. Okay.
sure. Thank you.
Okay, so here we have the confirmation node with two choices presented to the user, yes and no. And if the user says yes, I would like to connect back to the entity node. So the first thing that comes to our mind is why do anything else? Just come to the connections property. And if the user says yes, we connect back to the entity node. So this is my entity node. We connect back over there. Okay, we save it. Sorry. Okay, and if the user says no, he doesn't want to change it, I go to the cancel message where I present the response that okay, canceling the task, what else can I do for you? Okay, so this is how we have defined the flow. Let's see whether it is working as expected or not. Let us understand what is the error in this entire flow. So we put check balance here, and let's provide an account. We have seen that with the correct account number it works perfectly. Okay, so if I put account number 10 over here, we confirm this account number, it shows the balance. But if I go in for the same flow with an incorrect account number, let's say I mistype the account number and we confirm it. Okay, at this point I'm very sure that that is the account number. So you can see the alternate flow is triggered from the logic node where the response, the API response was non 200. So the alternate flow is triggered over here with the error message coming up that no information found with account number 100. Do you want to change your account number? Okay, so if I say yes, or if I say go ahead, whatever, okay, I have provided go ahead as a synonym of yes. So let's say if I say go ahead over here, see, it is not allowing me to change the account number. Okay, so the flow is triggered. You can understand from here, this flow is triggered because once again it is coming back to the confirmation of the account number. Are you sure you want to proceed with the account number 100? So this node is triggered once again. That means it came to the entity node and from there it went to the confirmation node. But it is not allowing me to change the account number. If you see here, you can see account ID entity still holds the value of 100. Now, why is that happening? It's a property of our platform that is to maintain the context, to maintain the state of a conversation. If an entity is holding a value, the user cannot overwrite that particular value. Okay, while the task is in execution. So right now the same task is in execution. Okay, so in this particular flow, account ID is already holding the incorrect account number. By default, as long as this conversation does not come to an end, this entity will continue holding that account number which had been entered by the user right at the starting, and it will not allow the user to overwrite that account number. Okay, now how do we overcome this particular thing? Because here we want the user to overwrite that, right? The user wants to, very clearly the user wants to overwrite that because the user has said yes, I want to change the account number. So how do we force the bot to allow the user to overwrite the value in this particular entity? Here, before we connect back to this entity node, we need to remove this particular entity. We need to remove the instance of this entity so that the entity is created once again when we connect back over here. And when the entity is created once again, the bot will prompt the user for the account number. Now, since this was an incorrect account number, we do not need to hold that account number. Okay, we can just delete that entity so that the entity is created once again and the bot prompts the user for the account number. How do we do that? For that purpose, I hover the mouse between the connection lines within this confirmation node and this entity node. So this is the connection lines you can see over here. I add a new node, but this time I add a JavaScript node, and through a single line of JavaScript, I'm going to remove the instance of this entity. Now within a script node, you can, add any JavaScript, okay? Anything in JavaScript that you want to write, you can write that within a script node, okay? So include coding within your conversation flows to implement complex, validation rules and all. You can always write your codes in JavaScript. That is the only coding, scripting language that is allowed, okay? So let me just put it over here as a refresh account ID. And now I go to define script here. And within this particular page, you can write your JavaScript. Okay, but for my purpose, I just need a single line of JavaScript, that is delete followed by the entity that I would like to delete. Okay, so entities dot account ID. That is going to remove the instance of this particular entity. Now, once again, see, I'm not using the double curly braces within the JavaScript or within your, transition flows. You do not need to use the double curly braces. It is only required in your prompts, messages, and your service node configuration. Now, once I do this, let's save this. And now let's try the flow all over again. Let me just provide an incorrect account number and I say, yes, I want to proceed with this. So you can see the alternate flow is triggered. And do you want to change your account number? I say proceed. Okay. So you can see it has taken same as yes, because proceed has been provided as a synonym of the value yes. So you can see this particular confirmation node holds the value of yes, and the account ID entity has been removed from here. So in the entity list, you cannot see the account ID entity, but the bot is prompting the user for the account number once again. So if I provide the correct account number over here now, the rectified account number, and you can see the flow is triggered once again, and you can see the balance is returned to the user and the conversation ends with what else can I do for you. Okay, so in this way, the purpose of showing all this flow is, one is how you can track, the failures in API call. So refer to your service documentation and see what are the error codes that can be possibly returned. And depending on that, you can define your alternate flows from a logic node. Okay, that is the first thing. And the second is, if you want to, prompt the user to re-enter an entity value anywhere in your conversation. Remember, once an entity value is entered by the user, the bot will keep on holding that entity value as long as the task does not come to an end. Okay, so the context gets refreshed only when the task ends. But within the task flow, if you want to, prompt the user once again for the entity value, by default, the bot will not allow the user to re-enter because the entity is already holding a value. So before you reprompt the user for the entity value, make sure that you refresh or remove the instance of that particular entity from the context. How do you do it? Through a script node. A script node can be used for any purpose, for adding any JavaScript within your conversation flows, typically required to implement some business logics, complex business logics other than if-else conditions, because if-else conditions can be handled through logic nodes. Multiple level if-else conditions can also be handled through logic nodes, but more complex logics can be implemented using script nodes. Now, here I'm just using the script node to remove the instance of this entity. So just a single line of JavaScript, delete followed by the entity, will remove the instance of that entity, and then I connect back to that entity. Okay, is it clear to you all the flow? Any questions on this? Okay, so that is a dialog task which has a whole lot of configurations in through it, like you have seen right now. It has entity nodes, it has message nodes, it has confirmation nodes, service nodes, script nodes, logic nodes, and so on. Many nodes are there, which we will keep on discussing as we continue with the training. So, similar to a dialogue task, there can be a very simpler situation where the user asks a question and the bot should come back with an answer. Okay, so we'll be building more dialogue tasks as we continue with the session today. But right now, let's look into how the bot can handle FAQs. Okay, FAQs are just pairs of questions and answers. The user asks a question, the bot comes back with an answer. Something like if the user says, how can I open an account? Okay, the bot comes back with the process. Okay, that what documents are required to open an account. The bot comes up with a list of documents the account holder needs to submit for a new account. And the user says, I want to open an account. That should trigger an entire conversation where the bot can prompt the user for the required details, make an API call to save those details into a table, and then come back with a response. Okay, we will process your request for new account within a few days and you will be notified on your email ID. Okay, something like that. So that is an entire process where the bot is capturing a lot of information, triggering API calls, displaying messages, and so on. But when the user says what documents are required, the bot just comes back with a static response. Okay, so that is an FAQ. So two types of intents. Okay, one is a conversation flow, which is a dialogue task, and one is an FAQ where the bot just comes back with a static response. So these are two types of intents. One, the conversation flows we are handling through dialogue tasks. But the FAQs in the bot can be stored within knowledge graph. So knowledge graph is basically the collection of FAQs to which the bot can respond. So click on knowledge graph and click on create to add FAQs into your knowledge graph. Now, what are the different ways in which you can add FAQs into your knowledge graph? One is manually you add a question, you add the response, you save it, then add the next FAQ and the response of that FAQ. The second is importing FAQs. If you have a CSV file or a JSON file with all your FAQs inside it, you can import that and add all your questions and answers from that file into your bot. And the third is extraction, where your FAQs are defined in a website or in a PDF file, and you want to extract from these data sources and add it into your bot. Then we go in for the method of extraction. Let's look into each of these three processes to add FAQs into our bot. So we'll start off first with the manual process where we'll add a question and an answer, save it, then add the next question and the answer. So we start off with clicking on add FAQs, which will bring us to the page from where we can add our FAQs. So you can see add question over here, add response over here. I have a set of questions ready, so I'll just pick up questions from there, okay, and put it here. You can type it in also, okay? So there's nothing like you have to copy paste, you can type in your question, okay? And the response of the FAQ, we pick it up and we put it here. At times there can be some special characters which are misinterpreted. So let me just remove this. Okay. Now, once you provide the FAQ here, let's look into what are the other things. What is an alternate question? Once again, if this is a question, users can ask the same question in different ways because end user may not know exactly how the FAQ has been stored within the bot. So somebody can say something like, what do you, sorry, what do you mean by personal loan? Okay, so that is an alternate question. The first question is the simplest form, which is a primary question, but there are different ways in which the user can ask the same question. Something like the user can say, explain personal loans. Okay, or the user can say, define personal loans. So these are different ways in which the user can ask the same question. So we are adding them as alternate questions, and the first question is the question in the simplest form, which is known as the primary question. Okay, you can add as many alternate questions as possible. Adding alternate questions will of course increase the intelligence of the bot to handle the variations in the utterance of the user. These are certain things you should always consider even if you're not told about it when you're building a bot, because since we are not restricting the user, we are giving the user to opportunity to use the free flowing natural language. You always have to consider the possibility of the user asking the question in different ways. So think of all the possibilities and provide those as your alternate questions. Okay. Coming to the response part, this is the response of the bot. And if you want to add alternate responses, once again, simulating human behavior, where maybe the same response is not, we do not say the same answer using exactly the same words. Okay, we use different words. As long as the meaning of the response remains the same, it is okay. So you can use different phrases, different words to frame up the same answer. So click on add alternate response over here and provide your alternate response. You can also make your alternate response channel specific, just like the prompts and the messages. Select the channel and provide the response over here. When you are providing a channel specific response, remember there has to be at least one response applicable to all channels. That is a general response. Okay. Within your FAQ response, you can also make it bold, italics. You can insert a hyperlink within the response. You can insert images. You can have ordered list, unordered list, and so on. Okay, I'm just keeping it at a single response over here. I'll be, you can refer to the documentation. Okay, so I was referring to the documentation. If you want to know, though I'll be discussing more on notes of dialogue tasks, but if you want to go through more details, refer to the documentation. SharePoint and all, if you want to direct a user to a specific user guide in SharePoint, you have to insert the hyperlink like I was saying right now. So within the response, if you want to guide the user to a specific external URL, so insert a hyperlink over here. Okay. Now, once you have added the response, click on save to save the response and save the FAQ and add the FAQ and the response of that FAQ into the knowledge graph. Let me quickly add another question, okay? And let's see how it is working. Let's pick up this. So once again, I say add intent. We provide the FAQ over here and we provide the response over here. So I'm just copying it and I'm putting it. You can always type it and remember that, okay? Now, once you do this, you can add as many FAQs as you want. And once you have added all FAQs, we usually suggest don't go beyond 20,000. It might affect the working of the NLP. It might slow it down, but 20,000 is a huge amount, okay? So usually in thousands, there are no problems with adding FAQs into the bot. Remember to click on the train button once you have added all your FAQs over here, because knowledge graph is one of our NLP engines. It needs to be trained with the FAQs and the responses that you have added into the bot. So click on the train button to train the knowledge graph engine with these FAQs. And once it has been trained, now let's talk to the bot and see whether the bot is responding to the FAQs or not. Okay, so this is an FAQ which is there. You can see the response of that FAQ coming back. And here, if I say check balance, which is the name of a task, you can see the task is triggered accordingly. And the configuration of the, the conversation continues as per the configuration of the task. And you can see it comes to an end. Once again, I can ask something which can be another FAQ, something like, what is my other FAQ? Okay. So you can see the NLP, actually the NLP is working over here, though we have not trained it, but since NLP is auto-enabled on our platform, so within this test conversation window that you can see over here, the internally the NLP is working and it has the capability to understand if the utterance of the user contains the name of a task, it is triggering the dialog task. And if it is if it matches with one of the FAQs which are there, it is responding to that particular FAQ as per the response given over here. And if I say something like this, which is actually a small talk, you can see it is coming back with a response, you are welcome, and let's end the conversation with a bye or something. Okay, so that was an entire conversation taking place between the bot and the user. And you can see NLP till now we have not trained it, but still it has the intelligence to understand when the utterance of the user is matching with an FAQ within the bot, when the utterance of the user contains the name of the task to trigger the dialog task, when it matches with a small talk to return the response of that small talk. Okay, so how the NLP is working, once again we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. Identifying the intents correctly we will understand in tomorrow's session, but today you can see that whatever we are adding, the NLP is able to qualify the intent correctly and return the response accordingly. Okay, so is it clear to you all how the FAQs are, if once you add, how the bot responds to it? Okay, so that is the first way in which we add FAQs, but it is a tedious way if you have your FAQs in hundreds or thousands. Okay, so you cannot sit and type your question and your answer like that. So for that purpose, you can have an input file like this. I have created a CSV file over here. So let me just show you all the file content. So here what you can see, this file has been saved in the CSV format. So the first row is a header row where the first column says whatever comes in the following rows are FAQs to be added into the bot. Then we have the second column, which is the question ID, which is an unique numeric ID given to each of the questions that you have added over here. Next is the path, which is as of now the name of the bot. So you can see the name of the bot is Training Bank Bot. So it is good to copy this name and put it over there where you want to add your FAQ. So for that purpose, I come to the settings button beside this node over here, copy the name of the bot from here and put it here. Remember, the name of the bot should be provided correctly within the input file. Otherwise, your import method is going to fail. Okay, so it should match exactly with the way it has been named. Then comes the primary column for primary questions to be added into the bot. You can add as many questions as possible within the CSV file. Usually we suggest go up till 10,000 question. That is, the file size is restricted to 5 MB. So provide your primary question over here. The next column is for alternate questions. If you want to add some alternate questions for the primary question, you can add the alternate questions in the column for alternate questions in the subsequent rows, not in the same row. Okay, so you can see, is mobile banking available? There's an alternate question. Can I avail banking services on my mobile? But it is in the subsequent row over here. And this row does not have a unique question ID because this question is an alternate question to the primary question. Only the name of the bot remains over here. Tags are important words within the question which will help the NLP engine to qualify the question if those words are found in the utterance of the user. So at times it is not possible the entire question that can come from the user, but we can train the NLP engine in a way that if these words are there, no matter what other words are there, but since these words are present in the utterance of the user, return this response, okay? Qualify this particular question and return the response to the user. So those important words for which the NLP engine will look in the utterance of the user, they are known as tags. We will discuss more on tags in tomorrow's session when we are doing the NLP training. So I have left this column empty as of now in the tags. And finally, we have the answer or the response of this particular question. Remember, alternate responses cannot be added over here. So if you want to add some alternate response, you have to first import the file as it is, then open the question in the edit mode and add your alternate responses over there. But here you cannot define your alternate responses. So this is the content of the file. You can create an input file like this, either in the CSV format, or if you want, you can create it in the JSON format. Save your file, come back to your bot. Now, since these questions are already there, I'm just going to remove it from here. So I just select and delete the questions. And now I say import FAQs. Okay. Now the import method will replace the existing FAQs in your bot. So if you already have a few FAQs added and then you are going in for import, remember the import method will replace all those FAQs. So if you want to, save those FAQs somewhere, then you can go in for a backup either in the CSV or the JSON format. Since I do not have anything right now, so I just click on proceed, and you can always download the sample files to see the format in which the file should be created. Remove the dummy data and type in your own data over there. Okay, my file is already there, so I just click on the browse button and select the file. We click on next to start the import, and once the import is done, you can see the file has been imported successfully. Click on done, and that will show you all the questions and answers imported from that file into your bot. There are special characters like the apostrophe and all which does not get interpreted correctly. So you will see a question mark like this coming up. So all you need to do is open the question in the edit mode, clicking on the edit button, and remove those question marks from your response. So this is small editing that you need to do. Just look into everything that has been imported. If you see something has been not interpreted correctly, then just make the changes as required and click on the save button to save the changes. Okay, so once you look into all your questions and answers like this, make sure that you train your KG engine once again with the new questions that you have added. And now if you go back and talk to the bot, this is one of the questions which are there. Okay, so what is a pre-approved car loan? You will see KG comes back with the response of that question. Okay, this was a special character, maybe a space or something not interpreted. So I can just go back to that question over here and remove that special character. Okay, so this is the second method in which you can add questions and answers. Define all your question answers within an input file, CSV or JSON format. And once you have the questions answers ready, just import it and add all the questions and answers into your bot. Is it clear to you all? The third method of adding questions and answers into the bot is the extraction. Okay, so the extraction method is if you have your FAQs already defined in a website or in a PDF file. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate website because for file, you just click on extract from file and select the location of the file on your local system. Okay, so that can be in the PDF format or in the CSV format also. But this CSV file can contain only two columns. One is the question, one is the answer. So you cannot add alternate questions or tags and all within this file, which will be used for extraction, though the content is saved in the CSV format. Okay, let's look into the extraction from a website. And here I'm using a travel website because I'm not going in for the banking websites. They are very secure websites, so I don't want to just access those websites. So this is a travel related website, but an FAQ page over there. Okay, so this page has all the FAQs related to this particular website's travel information. Now, how do I pick up all these FAQs from this website and add it into my bot? Okay, So for that, I just copy this particular URL and say extract from URL. Okay, here give a name to your URL. You can give any name. Okay, for me this name is coming because I have used it earlier, but you just need to type in a name for the extraction. Any name will do. Okay, no restrictions over here. And in the next text box, provide the URL that you would like to use. So this is the URL which I'm using for extraction. Click on proceed, which will start extracting from that website. So you can see 69 questions have been extracted from that website. And if you want to see those questions which has been extracted, but the questions have not yet been added into the knowledge graph, because knowledge graph till now shows you 19 questions only, whereas extraction has extracted 69 questions. So they are extracted, they are available for the bot, but they are not yet added into the knowledge graph. If you want to see what are the questions, you come here. Okay, click on the tile and you can see all the questions which has been extracted by the extraction method, but they are not yet added into the knowledge graph directly, because at times we would not like to add all the questions into the knowledge graph that we have extracted. If you would like to add all, then just click here, select all the questions and answers, drag and drop it into the knowledge graph. If you are selective, then select the questions that you would like to add. Okay, just go through the questions and select the questions accordingly. And once you have made your selection, drag and drop them into your knowledge graph. So you will see 6 questions are added into the knowledge graph. 63 questions are there in the extraction which are not yet added, and total 69 questions were extracted. So if you go back to the knowledge graph now, you will get to see those 6 questions from travel, followed by the banking questions that I had imported. Okay, so you can see all your questions from the extraction, okay, followed by your banking related questions. And now I can click on the train button to train KG with the new questions which I have added from the extraction. And after training, if I talk to the bot and if my question matches with any of the FAQs which are available, the bot will come back with the response of that question. So this is the third method where you can extract KG questions from a website, from a PDF or a CSV file. Any questions on this method? Okay. So that is the second type of task that you can build within your bot to handle the FAQs that to which the bot should respond. Okay. The third type of task, which we do not discuss here, is alert tasks. These are similar to dialogue tasks, but dialogue tasks are on-demand tasks. That is, the user has to provide an utterance which will trigger the qualification of that task. The user has to say, I want to check my account balance. Then only the NLP will qualify the check balance task. But you might need to configure some tasks which are auto triggered at a given frequency. Something like 9 o'clock in the morning, it triggers an API call, fetches the weather condition and displays it back to you. Okay, or maybe it monitors some website. There's a task which monitors a website and it returns the response of that website at a given frequency. So those kind of auto triggered tasks at a given frequency can be configured within an alert task. And this has to be done through API calls, where you just put the API of the website which you want to monitor and the frequency you provide at what frequency that API should be triggered, the response picked up and displayed to the user. Okay, so that is an alert task that we can configure. We don't discuss alert tasks right now in the basic training session, because most of the bots will have dialogue tasks, knowledge graph, and the other important task is the small talk that we were talking about. The default section is the greetings section, which is available to all bots that are built on our platform. So you can see over here, we have defined the expected inputs from the user. We have created groups of those inputs, like the user can say hello, hi, and things related words like that, which has been put under a group called emotion hello. and how the bot will respond to it. So any one of these responses will be picked up and displayed to the user. Okay, if you want to add your own utterance like, how are you? And the bot comes back with I'm good, thank you. You can always do that along with the default ones which are handled through this particular group. Okay. So this is the default greeting section which is available across all languages that can be enabled for the bot. You can add your additional greetings over here. In user says type in the greetings that can come from the user. In bot says provide the response the bot should be displaying if the user says this. Now you can also define your own group. Okay, other than the greetings, there can be other small talks also, domain specific small talk. Like I was saying that if the user asks what is the name of the bank, okay, so I want to define a small talk group for banking related small talk questions. Okay, so something like this, I name it, type in the name, of course, and here, let's say the user says. Uh, because this does not qualify as an FAQ also. FAQs are banking related questions on the processes and all. This is just a simple question coming from the user. Okay, a general question. So those things we segregate as a small talk section. Okay. Uh, Something like this. Okay. So you can type in your question and how the bot will respond. You can put some alternate response. One of those will be displayed to the user. And once you have created your own small talk, click on the train button. Remember to train the small talk engine. This is a separate engine. So whenever you're making any changes in your small talk, you're adding additional greetings or you're creating your own small talk group, defining some messages and bot responses over there. Whenever you do these kind of things, make sure you click on the train button to train the bot with these new small talks. And once you do that, it's always good to check it. Okay, that is why I'm doing the configuration, talking to the bot and seeing whether the expected response is returned or not. Okay, at times we do certain configurations and later on we see the configurations are not working as expected. So it is always good, before you deploy the bot to the end user, talk to the bot and see whether your configurations is working as expected or not. So you can see the responses coming back as per the response we have provided over here. So that is a small talk. You can create your own domain specific small talk also if you want, but there will always be a default small talk which will handle the greetings that is expected from the end users. Is it clear to you all, the small talk section? Okay. Now coming to the next type of task that we can build is we will go to the digital skills and see how we can build a form. Now, what is the purpose of a form? Now, we have seen that usually to capture information from the user, which can be used in the conversation or the dialogue tasks, we have entity nodes. Now, today, let's say I have a task which will allow the user to raise request for a new account. Now, to raise request for a new account, the user needs to provide details like the name of the account holder, the type of the balance, okay, the name, let's say the opening balance, the address, the email ID, maybe some social security number or PAN card number, something like that, an identity proof over there. And there are multiple more details to be captured before the user can raise the request for a new account. Now, with what we have learned till now, for each piece of information, we need a separate entity. So when an entity comes into the context, the bot will use the prompt that is defined for the entity to prompt the user for the entity value. Now, if it is too many questions, we do not feel like continuing with the task. That is our, human psychology. If the bot starts with, okay, tell me what is the type of account you want. The user says savings account. What is the name of the primary account holder? The user provides the account holder name. What is your opening balance? The user provides opening balance. What is your email ID? Now, by this time, the user will start losing interest in the task because too many questions are coming one after the other. But there are tasks which need a lot of information to continue. Okay, so we cannot say that no, those are not the tasks we want to put in the bot because the user may not feel like responding to it. What is a better way of implementing these kind of tasks where a lot of information need to be captured from the user? So instead of configuring entities over here, we can present a form to the user. That form can capture all the inputs from the user. So the form will list out all the required details. The user can provide the details within the form, click on the submit button to submit that form, and then the task can continue as the configuration has been done. So we are not asking questions to the user one at a time. What we are doing is we are presenting a form to the user and asking the user to fill up the required details within the form. Okay, very similar to what we do when we go to a bank. We are presented with a form. Fill up all your details over here and then we will talk about it. Okay, that is how they do it in the bank. Same thing here. We are presenting a form to the user. Instead of making the bot prompt for the user for one question at a time, where the user might lose interest in the conversation after a certain point of time. Okay, so we are going to design a digital form for that particular purpose. Now, whatever information I'm capturing within the digital form, let's say, like, whatever information we capture in an entity, we know that the entity will lose all those values once the task comes to an end. Okay. Same way, whatever information you have captured within the digital form, the information will be lost once the particular task comes to an end. So before the task ends, we need to store this information somewhere so that later on those information can be processed in order to open a new account for the user. Okay, so here once again we will need some table. Okay, now we have seen how to do API configurations, whether it is a get call, whether it is a post call, we can do API configurations to access external databases. But if you do not have any external database, is it that you cannot create tasks on a bot which will fetch some information and it needs to store this information somewhere so that it can be processed later on? No, you can build your tables within our platform itself. Okay, you don't need to use any external services. How do you do that? Come back to your landing page and here you have data. Click on the data tab. Okay, the data tab will allow you to create new tables. So click on new table, give a name to your table. Okay, you can provide any name to your table. Something like, let's say, I provide the name of the table as user master details, any name. The only thing you should remember is no spaces are allowed in the table name, no spaces are allowed, and no special characters are allowed. Okay, add a description if you want. This is not mandatory, but you can add a description as to what is the requirement of the table, what kind of data is stored within the table. Then you come to columns and define your columns within the table. Put the name of the column and the type of the column. Okay, so these are the three supported types of the column and the name of the column. These are two mandatory columns. Okay, you have to give a name and a type of the column that you want to add into your table. The other details here is whether that column is required or not, that is the value is mandatory or not. You can enable that. If you want to enable internal encryption of data, you can do it from here. If you want to implement some referential integrity with the master-child table relationship, this is an RDBMS concept. That is, you have a master table with a column, which will act as a reference column for this particular column in the child table. So the values in the column of the child table are only those which are available in the column of the master table. Okay, so it is a referential integrity that you are creating. So in that case, if you have a master table with a column over there, you can use the table name.that column name, which will be a reference column for this particular column in the child table. Maximum length of values allowed for this particular column, you can put it here. And default value is the value that will be used when a new row is inserted into the table without any value for this particular column. So the default value will come into play. Okay. Once you define a column like this, click on the tick sign over here to add the column and then define the next column. I'm not creating a separate table because I already have a table that I'm going to use. The next over here is the indexes. You can create indexes for better search and retrieval of data, which will create internally an index file, okay, which allows quicker search and data retrieval. So put a name to your index and the column on which you want to create an index. If you want to define a unique column, that is the value should not be repeated across the rows in the table, then you can enable this unique filter over here, constraint rather, unique constraint over here, and provide the name of the column on which you want to apply this constraint. So no rows in the table will contain duplicate values for this particular column. And finally, you have the bot assignment section where you have to give a bot, a specific bot, permission to access the table. If a bot does not have the permission to access the table, then you cannot access the content of this table from the tasks defined within that particular bot. Okay, so this part is very important. Once you do all this configuration, click on create to create the table. I'm not creating a new table, but let me show you an existing table, that is the user master details table. This is the name of the table. The columns here is the name of the account holder, the address, and the email ID of the account holder. Okay, and then in the bot assignment, I have not created any indexes, but in the bot assignment, let me go and provide the name of my bot, which I have created today, and give it the read, write, and delete permission. And listen until you give the permission to this bot to access this table. You cannot have tasks within this bot where you use this particular table. Okay, so this part is very important. Is it clear to you all how to create tables on our platform? Okay. Now, once you create a table like this, come back to your virtual assistant, click on the bot that with which you are working. And this time I'm going to use a table with the data forms, okay, digital forms rather. There's no restriction like this that you have to have digital forms with tables, nothing like that. You can have digital forms to capture information and then make an API call using the information captured in the digital forms. You can have entities to capture information and then store this information into a data table. All of it is possible, but I'm going to show you all both of it together. That is, I'm going to create a digital form, capture information from the user and store it within my table. How do we do that? We come to digital skills and under that we have digital forms. Click on this and start by creating a new form. Okay, here put a name to your form. The first thing is the name of the form. Let's see, I name the form as, now this name is very important, okay, because you are going to refer to this form from the dialog tasks using this particular name, and it is case sensitive, so remember the way you have named the form. Display name is what is displayed on the top of the form. Okay, so let's say something like this. But this is just for display. Internally, you are going to refer to this form with the name that you have provided over here. Now click on save and proceed. If you want to add a description, you can add it. Click on save and proceed. That will bring you to the form designer screen. You can see all the components that you can add into your form on the left hand side, and you can see the empty form over here with only the submit button. Let's add a text field first to capture the name of the account holder. So just drag the component, drop it here. It will open the properties window. So put a display name, what is displayed above the text field. So account holder name, and name is how you are going to refer to this component internally. Okay, so let's say account name. Okay, you can add a description which will be displayed below the display name. You can add a placeholder which is displayed in the text box as long as you don't type in your input. So provide your name. You can add tooltips. You can specify the position of the tooltip and so on. Once you have done that, click outside this particular window to close the uh, properties window. Okay, so you can see the display name, you can see the placeholder coming up. Okay, and we can type in the content if we want. Let me add a text area for the address. Okay, and finally, let's say I want the email ID, so I select the component email, so that automatically the bot validates whatever I'm providing is in the format of a valid email address or not. Okay, so for that I select email as the component type. So account holder email, and here for the name I put account email. Okay, so these are the three components corresponding to the columns in the table. Okay, you can add radio buttons, you can have drop down list, you can have check boxes if you want. You can have a date picker. Okay, so if you select the type as a date, okay, so let's say you put a date over here, what you will actually get is a date picker. Okay, so you can select the date from here and you get to see. So in this way, design your form. You can play around with all the components which are there. Once again, the documentation, I'll be sharing the link where you can look into how the different components can be configured and added into your form. And once you design the form like this, come out from here, go back to a dialog task. And now let's say I create a new dialog task here called submit details. This name is coming because I've created this task earlier also, but you need to type in the name. Click on proceed. You can add a description if you want. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is to invoke that form that I have designed right now. So for that purpose, I come here and now I go into a form node, okay, from where I invoke the form that I have created. So you can see the name of the form coming up. Just select this name to invoke the form. Now, how do you invoke the form? Do you just want the form, or there are possibilities that you will add channels where the form cannot be displayed? So where every component of the form should be replaced as an entity. If you go in for the next option, it will automatically create a dialog task, okay, where each form component will be replaced as an entity. So that is only for channels, like if you're going in for voice channels and all, where your form cannot be displayed to the user and you would like the components to be displayed as entities, so that the prompt of the entity is uh, the bot presents that form over the voice channel, and the user can respond to it. So for those kind of integrations, you can go in for this option. Right now, I'm going to enable the web channel where the form can be displayed. So I just go in for the first option and we click on done. So that opens the properties window over here. We don't make any changes in these things. We leave it as it is, but the form will be presented as a link to the user. Okay, so this is the message that will be displayed on the top of the form. Let us see how the form will look. So you can see the link to display the form. This is the message in this particular box. We click here. We get to see the form coming up in the entire conversation window. We can type in the details over here and click on submit button. Okay. First is how we can change this. Okay. We want to see whatever messages before the form is displayed along with the form display. We do not want the entire conversation window to display just the form. If you want this, then it is fine. Okay. You have a full form display, but you can also change it. Okay, you can change it from here. That is the SDK form behavior. Do you want a full page pop-up, or you want an inline form where the previous messages are displayed along with the form? Okay, this was the message before that particular link, clicking on which you get to see the form. Okay, you can change this message as you want. This is the error message that will be displayed in case your inputs do not match with the expected type. And this is the message that will be presented when the user clicks on the submit button. Okay. So when you click on the submit button, there's a message coming from the form and that will be displayed. And what message is displayed is the submit message that you provide over here. Now, once you have done the configuration of the form and the user provides the input within the form, the next is I would like to save these details into my table so that maybe some other process can pick up the details and use the details to open an account for the user. How do we do that? We come here and we create a service node once again. So service nodes are also used to access the data tables that you have created. Okay. Now, the first thing is change the service type from custom service, which is used for web calls or API calls. We change it to data service. So click on data service to make the change. And once you have changed to data service, come to define request, select the table. Now here you will only get to see the tables to which you have provided access to this spot. Okay, if you don't provide any access to any table, nothing will be displayed here. So this was the table that I had created. What kind of action do you want to add data? You want to fetch data, update or delete data? I'm going in for fetching data. Oh, sorry, adding data, because I want to add the details which I have captured within the form into this particular table. Okay, so when you say add data, you can see the 3 columns of the table displayed. All you need to do is provide the values that you would like to add into these columns. Okay, so if it is an entities that you have captured, within double curly braces, you say context dot entities followed by the name of the entity. Okay, so you will get it in the autofill box, you will get that coming up. But since it is within a form, I say context dot forms, okay, dot the name of the form. Now, what is the name of the form? User details. Be very careful with the case, okay, because it is very case sensitive when you are using the name of the form. So we put user details over here. You can see the name of the form here also, followed by some unique numbers. You can check out the name from here. Dot the name of the component from the form which you would like to add into this particular column. So the name of the component is account email. This is also very case sensitive, so make sure that you use it exactly how you have defined within your form. Okay, so the next is account address. And finally, we have the name of the account holder. Okay, so if it is entity, then context.entities.name of the entity. If it is form, context.forms.name of the form, name of the component within the form. Once you have done that, click on save to save this configuration and close this configuration window. Now I don't need to do anything else because my submit button will already show me that message that your details have been submitted. So I don't need to display another message, but if you want, you can add a new message note and you can say that your details has been saved by us. We will do the needful and get back to you, something like that. Okay, now coming back, so we have the submit details task over here where we are using the form and the data table. Let me just quickly create another task through which I'm going to see the details that I have added. Okay, so let's say we name it as fetch details. And since we are adding an email ID, which is expectedly unique for every user, so first we prompt the user for an email ID. So I just create an entity node over here. Now I change the type to email so that the bot automatically validates if the format is, the input is in the format of an email or not. And then in user prompt, I go in for okay. And once the user adds the email ID over here, once again, we make a service call. Okay, so I go in for a service node once again. This time it will be to fetch a row from the table. So service type, I change it to data service. We are going to access a data table. So I change it to data service. Click on define request over here. The table we selected, the action this time is get data because we are fetching details. If you do not add any filter conditions and you click on test just to see how this get data works, you can see one row has been returned. So this is the response. Okay, so you can see the row over here, one single row is there within the table. Let's understand the response. Whatever comes in the payload, okay, is actually the body of the response. So this is very similar to service call. Internally what is happening is a service call. Okay, so whatever is there inside the payload is actually the body of the response. Okay, now, like in external API calls, you get that status. So every API has some status codes like that, 200s, 400 range, 500 range. So those are all different types of codes which will tell you the status of the response of that API. But when you are accessing data tables on our platform, you will see within the body of the response, you have a component called total. Now total tells you how many rows are returned. If no rows are returned by this particular service call, total will be equal to 0. And if rows are returned, the total number of rows are displayed here. So if it is equal to 0, then you can display an error message that is no rows found. And if it is not equal to 0, then you can display the details or process the details as you want. Okay. Here we can see total is 1, which means one row has been returned by this particular service call. Where do you get to see the row? You have a section called query result, okay, which is an array. You can see the square brackets, which means it is a JSON array. And within that particular array, you have individual rows which contains the email, the address, and the name of the account holder. Okay, so it is from here we'll pick up the details from the query result within the body of the response. Okay, is it clear to you all how the response is returned? Any questions on this? Okay, now I don't want all the rows to be returned, so that is why I'm adding a filter over here. So I just click on the plus sign to add a filter. Select the column from the table on which you want to add a filter. I'm going to add a filter on the email. Okay, this should be equal to the email that I have accepted from the user within this entity. So what we do is we put context dot entities dot the name of the entity. Okay. Now once we have done that, let's save this. Let's change the name of the service node. Okay. This is the name of my service node. And once we have completed the configuration, the service node will fetch the table. If I want to see whether any response is returned or not, we can add a logic node over here where we check for the total. If the total is equal to 0, then we display an error message. If the total is not equal to 0, we display the row that has been fetched. You can implement that, I guess, now. But I'm going to just add a message node where we display the details fetched by the service call. Now, how do we display the details? So I'm just going to print the name. Okay, you can print all the other details just to show you all how you are going to access the details which are returned by that service call. So within double curly braces, context dot the name of the service call, and name of the node where the service call is configured. This is the name of the node. Dot response. Okay, dot body. What is that payload which is returned? Now within the body we have the query result. This is very case sensitive, remember. So result was R in capital. So query result, it was an array. So since we are expecting one row to be returned for a given email address, so the array index position should be 0 to access that particular row, dot the name of the column. So the name of the column where the user's name or the account holder name was available was just name. Okay. So once again, context dot name of the service node dot response dot body is the payload that is returned, dot query result. Okay, always remember query result R is in capital, so you should specify it exactly in that way. Since it is an array, so one row is returned, so it is the index position is 0, dot the name of the column that you would like to display here. Okay, so just add that, and once you have added that, let's see how both of these tasks work together. So I come back to talk to the bot. Now, if there is some mismatch in my name of the, components of the form and all, the row will not be added. So it is always good to check whether it is working or not. You have made any mistake in the configuration or not. So I first go in for submit details. Let's provide a name of the account holder. Okay, an address over here, and the email address. Let's say I'll just copy this and we click on submit. So you can see the form has been submitted successfully. Okay, and here you can see the service call was made, and you can see that it has been added into the table. Okay, so the details has been added into the table. Let us see whether the details are actually added or not. So we go back and we perform the task, that is fetch details, which fetch from the table and display it to the user. So it is asking for the mail ID. So I just put the mail ID over here, and you can see the name is returned back. That was the name that we had entered in this particular form. So if you come back to the service node configuration, you can see the service node was initiated, which fetched the row, and from the row returned by the service call, we are picking up the name and displaying it back to the user. So the purpose is whenever you want to use some service in order to store details or work with details that you are capturing from the user, either through entities or through forms, either you can use external services which you can connect through API calls, or if you are not comfortable or you don't have access to any external services, then you can always build tables within our platform and use those tables in the bot with which you are working. Okay, so this is how you create data tables, you create digital forms, invoke the form from the dialog tasks, and work with the data tables within your dialog task. Is it clear to you all? Any questions? Okay. Now, once you configure all these different types of tasks within the bot, the next, of course, should be training the NLP engine to handle the variations in the utterance of the user. Because right now, though for FAQs, I could add a few alternate questions, but there should be more training to the KG. But of course, the elementary level of training I had provided by adding alternate questions. But for the tasks, we have not done anything. Till now, since I've not trained NLP, I'm just using the task names when I'm talking to the bot. But that is not how users are going to request for the task. They can say, I need to see how much money is there in my account, or something like, can you show me the funds available? The total amount of funds available. So they are not using the task names when they are requesting for a particular task. So there the NLP should have the intelligence to understand this utterance and qualify a task correctly. But for that, we need to train the NLP, which we will discuss tomorrow. So when you are training the NLP, of course, you need to test your bot along with it. One is by talking to the bot and see whether the task is getting identified or not. Or there are some other methods in which we can do the testing of the performance of the bot. And after that, we deploy the bot to the end user. Now let's look into deploying the bot to the end user by adding a channel to the bot. But before we add a channel, just I want to make some changes. One is I want to add a welcome message. Right now, when the user is connected to the bot, or when I'm connecting, the bot is waiting for me to initiate the conversation. I need to provide the first message over here. But how do I make the bot greet me as soon as I connect? Something like, hello, I'm your banking assistant. What can I do for you? Something like that. Okay. So for that purpose, we come to the intelligence, and here you have something called events. Click on this, and you can see the first 5 events are welcome events. That is, these events are triggered as soon as the user connects to the bot. There are some channel specific welcome events, like for the Facebook Messenger channel, for the IVR channel, for the Telegram channel, and the on connect is for the web channel. So if you are enabling the bot on the web channel so that the users can connect to the bot from the websites of the enterprises or from the browser, then it is the on connect event. For any other channel, because there are more channels available, you are going to do the configuration in the welcome event. The configuration is the same. Okay, so if you click here, what you see here is the same as if you click here, you will see the same configuration. But where you are doing the configuration, that makes all the difference. Okay, so I'm going to do the configuration for the web channel, that is the on connect event, because I'm going to invoke the bot on the browser. Okay, so we just come to that particular event, and there are 3 things you can do. Either you can initiate a task. So if you have a dialog task, which should be triggered as soon as the user connects to the bot, where the bot guides the user through how to talk to that particular chatbot in order to get tasks done. You can initiate that dialog task from here. Okay, if you want to execute some JavaScript, you can write your script here and execute it, and show message will display a static message to the user. Let's just add a message here. So I click on add response, and here I add. Okay, just click on done. You can apply any of these formattings. Okay, and then click on done over here and click on save and enable. Let us see what are the changes when I'm talking to the bot. So you can see the welcome message coming up. Next, let's say I want to add an image for the responses coming from the bot. So instead of just showing me the circle with 4 dots inside it, I want an image. Okay, so how do we add an image? For that, we come to configurations. Here we have general settings, and under general settings, you get the icon for the bot. Okay, so you can choose a file. That icon file, it has to be a PNG file that is available within your local system. So you can just select that particular file and attach it as an icon for the bot. So save it. Once you save it, now let's talk to the bot, and you will see every bot image is represented with this icon. So these are small little changes that you can do before you can deploy the bot to the end user. And once you make these changes, now let's come to the deploy. Okay, And the first thing before I publish the bot to the end users is I need to add a channel. Without adding a channel, you cannot publish the bot to the end users. So these are all the different channels that you can publish, and all channels come with a very good step-by-step instruction. Okay, so for any channel that you click, you can see that you get the step-by-step instruction. Most of the channels will require you to access some external services, that is your channel itself, for doing some configuration on the channel side as well. So you can see for this particular channel, WebEx channel, you can see you have to go to the developer portal of Cisco WebEx. You should have access over here and do the configurations within the portal itself, and then what configurations you need to do on the bot side, okay, on the chatbot which you where you want to enable that particular channel. So all the details are given for every channel. Okay, so if you select any one of the channels, you will see the entire step-by-step instructions with images are given. So just follow this instructions, go to the configuration side and do the configuration accordingly. I'm going to enable the web channel. So I come down over here and I have the web mobile client, which I can use to enable the web channel. Now for this, there are some different instructions. Okay, so you don't get the instructions coming up over here. So let me just explain. I'll also share a documentation where you will get all the steps written one after the other. Okay, it's quite a few steps, so it might be difficult for you all to remember it. Now, the first thing is whenever you are enabling a channel, you are actually connecting to the bot from an external environment. So this call to the chatbot will need an authorization. Okay, it is applicable for any channel. Now, any call to a bot which is built on our platform from an external environment needs to be authorized using a JWT or a JSON Web Token. How do you get this JSON Web Token? You can use any services for generating the JSON Web Token, or it's a Node.js application actually. So you can generate the JSON Web Token, which you will use with the calls that you are making to the chatbot. But the thing is that to generate this JSON Web Token, you will need a client ID and secret. This client ID and secret is unique for every bot that you built on our platform. How do you get that? You click on the add button, create an app. Okay, so give a name to your app, any name. Okay, let's say I name it as test app. And your JSON or JWT signing algorithm should be HS256, which will give you a client ID and secret. So the moment you create the app with the JWT signing algorithm as HS256, you get the client ID and secret auto-generated by the platform, which is unique for the bot for which you have created this app. Okay, and you get the name of the bot. ID of the bot is once again unique, which is generated for every bot that is built on our platform. Just this you need to do. Click on save to save the or add the channel to your bot. So you can see the channel has been added. Okay. Now, once you add channel, you can add multiple channels if you want. So just click on the channel that you want to add and do the configurations as given. And once the channels has been enabled, click on the publish button to deploy the bot on the channels that you have enabled. When you're publishing, you can select what you want to publish. So if there are some tasks which you have not completed the configurations, you can deselect the task you would not like to publish. Only the selected tasks will be published. Okay. Now, once you have done all your selection and all, click on proceed button. Add a comment over here because this publish request goes to the admin of the platform for approval. Okay, so your comment should be a detail of what you are trying to publish. Okay, I just put web channel added over here, but it should be more detailed, and click on confirm. That will trigger a publish request, and you can see the publish status. Right now it is auto publish is on for me, so that is why it got published. Otherwise, if it is manual publishing, then the admin of the platform needs to go through the publish request and approve or reject it. Okay, so right now it is auto published. You can see that I'll receive a mail also. Yeah, so I've got a mail over here telling me that the administrator has approved my request. Now, once the bot has been published, okay, what is the next thing? Okay, the next thing is, since this is the web channel from the server where you would like to deploy your bot, there are a few configurations. The first is from our GitHub, Core AI GitHub, you need to download the SDK which contains all the files which are required for this configuration. The documentation that I'll share with you all will contain the link to the GitHub, and once you download, you get a zip folder like this downloaded. On extraction, this is the folder which contains all the files under the different folders. Okay, go to the SDK folder. Under that you have UI, and this contains all the configuration files. You can see the CSS file from where you can change the look and feel of the chat window. That is the color of the widgets, the color of the, the user message bubble or the bot response bubble. All of those things can be done from the CSS file. But for this, you need to know CSS well. Okay. But the main file where you need to provide the details of the bot is core config.js file. Open this file. Okay, so I'm just opening this file. Now this is the file. Okay, here you need to put, you can see there is a section called bot info where you need to put the name of the bot, the ID of the bot, and followed by the client ID and secret. So we come back to the bot. Okay, go to the channel, which will once again open the channel page, open the web channel. Here you get the name of the bot, copy it from here. Because it is case sensitive, I would suggest that you copy the name and put it within the configuration file. Okay, followed by the ID of the bot, put it over here. Okay, followed by the client ID, just copy it and put it here, and the client secret, copy it and put it here. The other details that you need to put within this file is where your Node.js application is running, because it will be used to generate the client JWT using the client ID and secret within this particular file whenever the user connects to the bot. So since I'll be running Node.js on my local system, this is how it is to be referred. This is by default provided. If it is some other server, provide the URL of that server. And user identity is the email ID of the developer who is doing this particular deployment configuration. Once you do that, save this and start your Node.js. Okay, so let me just start Node.js. And once you have started Node.js, there's actually a file available which has the commands to start Node.js within the downloaded SDK. Okay, so you can see over here, okay, start server.js. This file actually contains all the commands to start Node.js. So we are just using that file to start the Node.js server. And before that, you need to install Node.js within your local system. Once again, the link to download Node.js is provided in the documentation that I'll be sharing with you all. And once that is done, now let's see directly from the web browser. So I'm not using the bot builder to talk to the bot, but directly from the this thing, I'm just going in for connecting to the bot. It's deployed on the local host, and you can see we are talking to the bot. The welcome message is coming up. So I just ask a question. What is one of the it should come back with the response of this particular question. And now if I say check balance, this is one of the tasks. Okay, what is the account number? Let's provide an account number over here, confirm it. So you can see exactly how we have configured the task. That's what we can see over here. Let's go in for another task, that is fetch details. So you can see the name. This is a data table access, which we had done right now. Okay, let's go in for some small talk. And we say buy something like this. So this entire conversation is taking place between the bot and the user using the website. Okay, so this can be the website of the enterprise where you enable all these files within the folder where you have all your files for your website. So there you need to include all these files, this downloaded file, so that your bot is enabled within the website, your website, and users can connect to the bot directly from there. Okay, so this is the purpose of a channel, because you're not using the core AI bot builder environment in order to talk to the bot. You're talking to the bot from an messaging application and external application which you have enabled for the bot. Okay, so this is the end-to-end process. That is, you are creating tasks within the bot. Before the tasks, you can design the conversations, which will give you an idea of how the conversation will flow. Once you have your designs confirmed, then you can create the tasks. You can add FAQs if you want. You can add small talks if you want. And then you need to train NLP, which we have not done today, test the performance of the bot, and then add channels and deploy the bot and talk to the bot over the channels on which it has been deployed. So any questions on anything that we have discussed today? Yeah, so what we did today was we started off with designing conversations, okay, from storyboard. Okay, under conversation skills, we covered storyboard where we designed conversations. We converted that conversations into tasks using dialogue tasks. We added FAQs into the bot using different methods under knowledge graph. We went in for small talk, which handles the general conversations that can take place between the bot and the user. In digital skills, we covered digital forms. Okay, in the dialogue task configuration, we have seen how we can connect to external services using API calls. We can also build tables within bot builder from the data tab under the thing under the landing page of the developer, and use those data tables in the dialogue task, and how to invoke digital forms from the dialogue task. Then what we did was we added a channel today, and before that we added welcome message. Of course, I forgot that. From the intelligence of the bot and event, I have added welcome message. From configurations, general settings, I have added an image for the bot responses and all. And then from deploy, I added a channel to the bot and published the bot to the end user. Okay, so you are building tasks within the bot. You are doing some general changes to the chat window by adding some image and welcome messages, and then you are adding a channel and deploying the bot to the end user. Okay, so that is what we have covered today. I'll be sharing this recording with you all for your reference. I'll be sharing, additional documentation links which you can refer to understand the processes that we were discussing in the training. I'll share the PPT also, which I have used. Please go through it. And if you all have any questions, you all can mail me your questions and I'll respond to them. Okay. Any questions on anything? Okay, so let's stop today's session here, and tomorrow